You are listening to the Paranormal Chronicles radio show. Here are your hosts, G.L. Davies and Dave Dominguez.
Greetings and welcome, everyone, to the Paranormal Chronicles Radio Network with your host, Gavin Davies, and I'm Dave Dominguez. Thank you for joining us.
I am so blessed to have you on board, Dave. Now, Dave, for anyone who hasn't heard of him yet, you should have, because he is a world-renowned paranormal researcher, investigator, and broadcaster. Now, some of you already know me from A Most Haunted House, founder of the Paranormal Chronicles, and author of one of the most controversial paranormal books I think has been written in recent memory, Ghost Sex Violation. Now, our aim on this show is simply to bring you the best in guests, paranormal topics, subjects, and we want you to interact. We want you to get involved. If you don't like what we're saying, let us know. If you like us, subscribe. There's no off-limit subjects. If it's to do with the paranormal, we will be discussing it. It's going to be a lot of fun. I am so excited. We have got such an incredible show lined up for everyone.
Yes, we do. We have, we're starting off good today. We're starting off with Bigfoot month, and we have a couple of very special guests in store for our listeners. We have Kevin Malik of the Northern Wisconsin Paranormal Society. He's the founder. And we also have author and Bigfoot researcher Keith Bearden, who wrote the book Forest Friends of the Night, My True Stories of the Bigfoot People. So those are going to have really, really nice interviews in store. Very interesting. A lot of information for our listeners. Probably information they've never heard before for people who are Bigfoot researchers, Bigfoot fanatics, Bigfoot fans.
I know, if you're into Bigfoot, this is the show for you. There is so much information, so much compelling evidence. And to top it all off, I spent some time with Ashley Shannon from They Made Me Do It movie blog, and we spent a little time looking at the best and worst Bigfoot movies out there. It's not as chilling and thrilling, but it is certainly very entertaining. It's one of the funniest podcasts I've ever done. But to serious business, we have some great stuff on this network. As Dave said, the month of May is going to be Bigfoot month. Dave's going to be launching his own show, Event Horizon Online Radio. He's got some incredible guests. We're going to still be doing Bigfoot. We're going to have some Bigfoot footage, Bigfoot pictures, everything Bigfoot. So if you like Bigfoot, or you just like the paranormal, subscribe. Keep subscribing, keep watching, keep listening. Now, if you're listening to this on the podcast, you can head to our YouTube channel and watch the video version, where we'll include information like slides and videos. Now, if you're watching this on YouTube, you can go to the podcast if you want to download it on the way to work, on the way to school, however you listen to it. So you have the freedom to enjoy the show in both ways. Are you excited about our first guest, Dave?
Keith Bearden. Of course, he's the author of Forest Friends of the Night, and he has his own Bigfoot experience. He's going to relate his own Bigfoot experiences, what he witnessed, things that he experienced with a Bigfoot research group. So it's really, really hair-raising stories that he has.
It
really
is so
chilling.
much detail. It is incredible detail. Bigfoot fans, you're going to love this interview. Shall we press play and let them hear it, Dave?
Yeah, let's go straight to Keith and straight to his interview.
Here we go.
Thank you very much for joining us on the Paranormal Chronicles Radio Network, Keith. We have Keith Bearden on, the author of course, Forest Friends of the Night, My True Story of the Discovery of the Bigfoot People. Welcome aboard, Keith. Good to have you.
Thank you. Good to be here, guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much for coming on, Keith. I am so excited to hear. How did you get into the Bigfoot cases? How did you get into Bigfoot?
Well, it all happened by accident, or maybe not accident. It all happened when I was hunting. I have a family tract of land that I hunt on here in Georgia in the United States, and we began having some really weird things start happening. We would have weird howls at night that I couldn't explain away. I was born and raised here, hunted since I was a little bitty guy, 6 or 7 years old with my dad. So I'm very familiar with all the creatures here, all the animals that I've grown up hearing. And we started hearing things that I'd never, ever heard before. It was a very loud, piercing screams that would start out very low and get higher and higher. Heard those at night several times. We heard some things in the daytime. But the odd things were the camper shaking at night. That happened to my mom and dad. They were down there and sleeping in a truck camper, and it began to shake back and forth. Finding trees broke over that were like 8 or 9 inches in diameter. So finding those things broke over around the 8 or 10 foot mark, and there was no wind or anything. It would just happen overnight. All of this kind of progressed with odd things happening from time to time until I found a track. When I found the footprint track, that's when it all hit me, and I was blown away. That changed my life. From that day forward, I began to go onto the internet and look at anything and read every book I could find to find out if this is what I had on our property. And as it turned out, all the criteria that I was reading about matched exactly what was going on my property. So that's kind of how it started. And then, of course, I reached out to a group that I'd found on the internet called the BFRO. And the BFRO, Bigfoot Researchers Organization Group, sent out a lady, and we met for coffee in a town close by and explained some things to me, and I had a lot of questions. But she came out with her night vision. She actually was employed by the United States Army stationed at Fort Benning in Georgia here. She was enlisted for a while, and then she after she got out, she continued as a civilian worker there in the office. But she came out, brought night vision goggles, and we did a couple walks around the property at night, and we heard some things. She showed me some really cool structures, TP type structures in the woods, and some more things that really started to open my eyes what was going on. And from that moment on, I've been researching, talking to as many people as I can possibly talk to, and that's kind of where it all started.
Oh, okay. So you all went and you did this like investigation with the night vision and everything. She was from the BFRO?
Yes.
And
yes.
she so did you all get any video, or did you record anything? Did you
No.
What did you all
didn't
see?
We didn't see anything with the night vision at all. We didn't record anything, but she brought it all out anyway.
Okay.
But what we did find was she pointed out to me a very cool structure, I would call it. It was shaped like a teepee, and I'd walk by this thing half a dozen times in the past, and I would notice that there would be like sticks added to it, and I didn't have any idea what it was. It was kind of strange looking, but I had no idea what it was until she showed me the trail that ran parallel to it. And then when I put some focus on going back down there and keeping an eye on, I put a game camera up not too far from the structure, and that's actually where we found our footprint. And I did get an odd photo the very night that I got the footprint, but whatever was close to the camera was so close that it widened it out.
Oh, okay.
So I didn't get a clear shot, but the camera was located about 5.5 foot up, aiming down toward a creek. It had to have been extremely close because the tree was right on the creek bank. If it was walking in that creek and it walked in front of that camera, it had to have been extremely high to block out that camera.
How big is this structure that you all discovered? It's like a teepee shaped structure.
Yeah, it was about 7 foot high. It was around the base was probably 8 foot.
Okay.
Like I said, the sticks were stacked up like a teepee structure. And what I also noticed when I found it was when we found the track. The next day, I went back down there to the track again and took some more photos. But there was tons of deer hair all around the bottom of that structure. I mean, it was like pulled out and just laid on the ground. Anybody that's been hunting a lot, if you run across a predator kill, you'll find hair and this, that, and the other. But there was no deer. It was just like where one had gotten caught or damaged. And I kind of was thinking, well, maybe they caught that deer there, which ends up being part of what happened, because there was a situation that came up about a year after that where I heard a deer get caught and killed. And it was killed in that area, and I was a couple of hills over, and I got to see, I found the deer with a broken neck, and I saw flashes of black going through the woods. When I topped the hill, the deer was still kind of moving around a bit, just, barely, and I went over and looked at it, and it was, it was dead by the time I got there, but there was awful crashing going through the trees from this deer, and whatever it was running away. Now, my first impression, it was a poacher there with a bow and arrow or something, because there was no sound except for the deer screaming. But when I got to the deer and I turned it over and looked, there was no wounds whatsoever. The deer's had a snapped neck. I got a photo of that too. It's
oh, wow.
It's pretty. But then I got to thinking about what that was going through the woods running. And again, I began keeping a journal when I found the track. So I just started adding all these strange things to my journal. I called my son over. We took a look at the deer, took some photos. I wrote it all down. I didn't touch the deer. We left it there. I went back the next day. The deer was completely gone. There was nothing there. There was not drag marks in the leaves.
It was
Whatever.
picked up and taken away.
Yes. Whatever got this deer picked it up and towed it away. Towed it. That's right.
So you reckon you stumbled across a Bigfoot hunting or making a kill,
Yes,
and scared him off, and you didn't have time to take it.
That because and where this occurred was just a little bit away from the teepee structure, but with me being hunting on my lawn, if it was a pinch point or a funnel area where there was a large hill on one side, a large hill on the other, this was a trail that ran along the level part of the property down along a creek bottom, and it was the perfect area for deer to funnel in and out going into their feeding and bedding areas. So my thought was they're using this teepee structure somehow to as a blind, run the deer beside the blind, and then one would do that and one would grab the deer or whatever on the other side. That was what I was thinking, but again, I'm just trying to vision of what's going on.
You'd have to be a pretty powerful creature to pick up a deer and snap its back. I don't know of any human that could really do that.
No, it was a yearling spike. It wasn't a huge deer, but there's no way I could. And I definitely couldn't have snapped its neck like that.
Oh yeah. That's even a yearling, they're pretty fast. And they're pretty strong. They can hurt you. Even
that's right.
So, and this is on your property, right, Keith? And this is on. And how big is your property to give the listeners an idea?
Well, the property is only 450 acres, but it's surrounded.
Good size.
It's surrounded by thousands of acres all the way around. The thing about our property is you can't get in there. We have a gate. It's gated, first of all. You have to have a key to get in the gate.
Okay.
There's no way to get in it from any other access except for a road that drives through the woods about 1.5 miles. And so we're very aware of anyone that's going in and out has to have a key. And we were down there for probably, I'm thinking we were there for like 2 days, and we were there to hunt for like 4 days. And this was halfway through our hunt when all this happened. And we know there was nobody on our property. We've had that land for 30 some odd years. We have never had anyone get onto our property like that. Never had an issue. So
all these are just recent occurrences that they haven't happened before. Nothing like that.
This all started around 2009, 2010.
Okay.
We would have odd things happen. There was one time my dad had shot a deer. We were tracking it at night with lantern, and my cousin and I was walking through the woods, and we would walk and we would hear something walking beside us, and I would look at him, and he's like, "What is that over there?" And I'm like, "I don't know unless it's a coyote," but it sounded like it was on 2 legs. You can tell a bipedal foot sounds false. So as we walked, it would walk. We would stop, it would stop, and this happened until we found the deer. We got the deer, we pulled it out, and went back to camp. But those are some of the things that would happen. And then we started, some of our other hunters, the guys that hunted with us, mostly family, came back to camp this one day, and they were all excited and said, "There's a gorilla or a monkey on this property." And I'm like, "There's what?" Yeah, he says, "Well, we heard these sounds. It sounded just like an ape or just like a gorilla in the zoo." And I said, "Really?" And he's like, "Yeah." And we had several people hear that. My dad heard it. My little niece, who was only 8 years old, she was out there. So there were several people reporting this too. And all of this kind of like escalated into things happening around our camp at night. Like I said, my mom and dad were down there sleeping in a truck camper, and they were, fast asleep. And all of a sudden the truck starts shaking violently. My mom wakes up and she's trying to wake my dad up. They have a little dog they had in there, and it started barking and raising all kind of cane. So she was scared, wanted my dad to go out and look around, and he was so asleep he wouldn't get up. And by the time he woke up, whatever it was gone. He opened the back of the tailgate, but I think he was a little afraid to look out.
Yeah, I'd imagine.
My mom gave, but that happened all the way up until my son was actually one night down with my parents. Again, he was camping with them. I was on a trip to Texas, and he was out, and they had heard a lot of coyotes around camp, and he had taken his gun because we try to keep the coyotes, from coming into our camp. My mom and dad had this little dog, and we didn't want the little dog to get attacked or whatever. So he took a gun and walked around the corner from the campfire and is standing there, and something runs at him through the trees, and it's so big that it's pushing over 8, 9, 10 foot tall pine trees like grass.
Good
And
grief.
it's running toward him and breaking sticks and making a lot of noise. And it scares him so bad he just turns and runs. He don't pull his gun up or anything. He ran and got in a camper, locked the door, and he said he was so afraid. The terror that he felt inside was so great that he couldn't even speak for a couple of minutes. Mom calming, and he's 15 years old at the time, so whatever it was, it scared him so bad that it took him 5 or 10 minutes to settle down to where he could even talk.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah, so that happened, and then and I'm pretty big into the research part by now, and and after the track, I realized that we have these things on our property. I began to get a little afraid of him being down there in the woods hunting, and for us and my mom and dad, I'm like, because I don't know what they're going to do. I'm just learning about them. So at the end of that particular deer season, we ended up, after I had the land for so long, we ended up finding another tract closer to home. I was a little afraid to be down there again. So we found a tract of land that was it was another 500 acres, but it was a hunting club. We joined it. It was about half the drive. And when we got down there, I looked around to make sure there was no signs of broken trees or TPs. I looked for tracks because I didn't want to be where they were. I was really afraid for myself, but more so for my son.
Yeah.
Now once we found this particular tract of land, everything was good for about a year.
Yeah.
Then it all started.
So there weren't any footprints around the camper or anything the next morning? They didn't.
We never found a footprint around camp. Never. No, we wouldn't. When we were around the campfire, we would have them walking, and you could hear them walking around outside the firelight, just far enough out to where you couldn't hear. And I've learned since then they're extremely careful about leaving footprints. They're very familiar with what they're doing. They try not to. As a matter of fact, when my son and I were trying to find out what was going on, and we were trying to find tracks and whatever, we walked a stream that ran through the middle of the property and found that we think they were using that creek and that stream and trying to stay on the rocks as much as possible to prevent leaving a footprint. So
so they'll avoid them, and they're probably they're taught by their parents, the children, and so on and so forth. So that a good reason why we very rarely see footprints.
And I found a couple more tracks while we were there. There was one. The creek was about 12 foot wide from bank to bank on this one section. There was one in the bottom, halfway through the creek. It's like stepped off the bank, stepped in the creek, and stepped up on the other bank, which was a 12-foot span, and never left another track.
Wow.
So again, I got photos of those, and it all goes into my journal. But this was only the beginning. Things got much better.
So this was around 2000, and that's when you found this structure. So you think maybe a Bigfoot came and decided that's going to be part of my territory and erected the structure, and now you're seeing activity.
Yeah, I think. Well, actually, I think they had been there all along because we began talking about it. My dad, myself, about all the strange things we had heard along through the years and screams that we'd hear, and we heard these screams, and I'll tell you that the one sounded like a cow when it started, and then it got so loud it was like extremely loud. It would shake your insides but it'd start out low and it would rise and pitch until it ended up into a scream that sounded very very scary.
Yeah, so it wasn't a human scream. It was more.
No, it was. Whatever made this scream had a large set of lungs. It was extremely loud, and even when they were at a far off distance, I mean, we had some scream in close, but you could hear them, and it would just echo through the night. They were really loud.
So you think it was just one animal, or was several of them screaming? You think
there were several? There's been several times we were sitting around camp, and they would be screaming on one end of the property and then screaming somewhere else, and then we heard several back and forth.
Maybe they were communicating with each other.
That's what I think now. Yes, yes, sir.
So you don't hear anything like they say. They hear like them hitting the side of trees, knocking, and anything like that. Do you ever experience any of that?
Yes, I hear that quite a bit. After we had heard the screams, the one night we had gotten down to our hunting property late, and my son had and this was turkey season. We are going to go turkey hunting, and he had installed this sight on his gun. He wanted to shoot it, so we turned the headlights on the truck and on target, put the target up, and he shot it. And as soon as the echo of the gun stopped, we started hearing the screams, and the wood tapping started like you're talking about. We heard it several times back and forth, just big, large whacks, 2 or 3 of them, and then we'd hear it somewhere else too. And I have heard those all the way up until this year down on that particular property.
Yeah.
They do that quite a bit now down there.
Or they could be warning the other ones that you're around, maybe, or that you're armed, or
oh, they know
reason.
that I'm armed, and we've progressed so far through this thing into actual sightings, and that's where things have gotten really good. I don't know if you want me to just tell my story straight out, or you want to have questions up to this point.
No, go right ahead. If you could share it with us, we'd appreciate that.
Go for it, Keith. This is fascinating. I am in my element. Incredible.
Okay, well, as things turned out, we moved to another tract of property, like about half of the distance of driving. It was on a property very close to the Chattahoochee River here in Georgia, which now I know is long known for Bigfoot sightings up and down that river. So after we moved into this camp, and like I told you, I looked for any kind of sign because I didn't want to be on property because I was afraid of. Didn't see any signs on the property. My wife and I were down in camping one night. Had a really fun day camping, and I don't even think we were hunting that weekend. I think we just went down to camp. We were laying in the camper, and I heard audible talking outside the camper. I couldn't make out what the person, or as it turns out now, I think was a Bigfoot, was making, but it was gibberish. It was loud, it was deep, and they were doing it loud enough to where I could hear them. And I had been doing research a little bit along, and had run across Ron Moorhead's Sierra Sounds. And in some of that, there's some actual language that's been discovered by Scott Nelson, another friend of mine here. And they were making those sounds. It was like they were gibberish talking, but they were making a sound that to me sounded like talking outside the camper. And as soon as I heard it, and my mind went straight away to listening to Ron Moorhead's tape of the Sierra Sounds. And I told my wife, I think there's Bigfoots out there. She said, really? I said, yeah, you hear that? She said, yeah, I can hear it. It's just right outside. I tried looking out the window. I didn't see anything, but we could hear the back and forth, between a couple of them. So, and that set in motion things that really escalated to my wife's visual. And that's where I'll take you now.
Okay.
After we heard that, I started finding some of those signs again. Bent over trees. I found broke trees. I didn't find any footprints, but I was just finding some of the same things that I'd seen on the other property. So at this point in time, I'm on Facebook a lot, and I have met a couple of friends. And I don't know if you guys are familiar with Melba Ketchum and her DNA study.
Yes.
Yeah. So I had become friends with her on Facebook, and this was in the midst of her study. And we were talking one night, and she, all the things that you have going on, I really think you have, some great activity. I want you to seek out this lady. She's the real deal. You need to talk to her about what you need to do next and how, because I'm wanting to find out at this point in time as much as I can about them, but I also want to know if I can't find a property that they're not on, what do I do to not be afraid? Are they going to hurt me?
Mm-hmm.
So she gave me the name of a lady called Arla Williams. Her name's Arla Williams. And I also was introduced to Tom Cantrell, a lady, Autumn Williams. I don't know if you're familiar with her. She had a TV program here.
Mm-hmm.
So I began talking to them, and they were really helping me out with a lot of my questions and helping me understand some things. Autumn Williams called me one day, and we chatted for over an hour about everything that was going on, and she gave me some good tips. So I started trying to follow the leads of these people. Arla had told me they're not there to hurt you. They're another type of people. She said, what you need to do, start communicating with them, start telling them, just walk out in the woods and say who you are, and you're not there to hurt anybody. You just want to be friends. And she said, just start it out that way. And she said, stay at it and see where that goes. And so we started doing that. My wife and I would go out, and it felt a little strange at first to go out and start talking to woods not seeing anything, but we did what she said. And what started happening was we started having things like gifting. I don't know if you've ever heard of that, but
Yes.
we
Yes.
have a little table outside our camper. And there was one afternoon I was coming in, and my wife had been in the camper taking a nap, and there was a rock with a feather on top. There was a rock with a feather underneath the rock. Somebody had taken that feather, and I mean, you're not going to find a feather under a rock laying somewhere like that. And I'm thinking, is this because she had mentioned that to me, that they would do things like this? And I'm thinking, now that's pretty wild. And so we took photos. I wrote all that down. And this became more and more. We started seeing these. We would find leaves arranged in a certain way under a stick on the table or something like that. And, just different things. So we started putting out little things too to give back. And then, I'm doing everything that I'm being told by Arla. And so there was this one evening we had taken our grandson down there, and we're sitting around the fire talking, and you could hear sticks breaking out close to our camp. So I was pretty aware there was something around, even seeing an occasional limb move. So we tried to be friendly. I talked just like they were standing there. So after all that, we didn't hear anything for an hour, so we went to bed. Well, the very next day, I rode out on my ATV over to a section of our property, and right around the corner from our camp, there was a big pine tree that was about 50, 60 feet high that had been bent all the way over.
Wow.
Whatever had, I guess they climbed the tree and pulled it over somehow. There was a dead tree that was dragged about 20 feet from where it originally was. It was placed on the top of the tree, so it was perfectly bent over with this tree laying on it. And I'm like, that just fascinated me.
Yeah.
That was another moment that I'll never forget.
And these are heavy trees, right? They're not just.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
The tree that he dragged over, there's no way I could have drug it. It was about a 10 or 12-foot section. I don't know. I couldn't reach around it. It was that big, and it laid.
So you would need equipment in there to drag it or pick it up, and
yes, exactly.
at least something, a cherry picker or something.
That's right. So we thought that pretty strange. Well, the very next day, after I found that tree, I was going down to another section of our property. This was during turkey season, and I was gonna do some turkey hunting that day. And I had set up my decoys, and I was sitting on the edge of a field, and I started hearing this weird bird whistling, just very agitated, loud, and it was obnoxious. It was one of those things that was it was driving me crazy to hear. It was getting loud, and it was bugging me. It went on for like 30 minutes, and I finally got tired of hearing it. I'm thinking it's a bird, so I get my decoys. I walk toward the sound, and the sound stops. So I look around. I don't see anything. I dropped my decoys. I had my chair. I just set my chair up and sat back down and just started thinking about, what was making that weird noise, and how come I didn't see I didn't see anything run or fly off. Well, the sound started again, and this time it was on the other side of me toward a little hill alongside a roadbed. So again, I stand up, I walk over to where I'm hearing these noises, and I walk over the hill, and there in the roadway, or right on the side of the roadway, is this huge stack of rocks. One of the rocks, the one on the bottom, it had to be well over 100, 200 pounds. It was huge. I couldn't pick it up. And then there was other rocks stacked on top of it and balanced to the point I'm like, wow. Now that don't happen naturally. And that had just happened. That I'd been up and down that road the day before. It wasn't there. And I saw that.
Did you get a photo of it?
Oh, I did. I do have that photo.
Okay.
And I'll send you guys some of this stuff through some emails.
Oh, great. Appreciate that. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Absolutely.
So I got a photo of that. I took my wife, and we took a grandson Lane down there and took some pictures of it. And that became our new gifting spot. We would drive down and watermelon and stuff like that there. And almost every time that we would take something over there, it would be gone when we'd go back. And then there was this one particular day that we decided to do apples instead. And this particular day, so next weekend, I think it was, our other grandson Hunter was with us, and we took a bag of apples. There were 7 apples in the bag, and we drove over to where the big pine that's pinned to the ground. We drove over there. It's not far from camp, and there was a tree that they had pushed over since, that was just broken off was leaning kind of at a slant, but it was fairly level, but it was slanted a little bit. And I told Hunter, I said, why don't you put those apples, just set them there on that tree, and let's see what happens. So he takes the apples out. He puts the first, second, third one up, the fourth one. Well, the fifth apple, he was having a hard time keeping it on the tree, and it kept rolling off. So finally, he decides that's not going to stay there. And I said, I'll tell you what, see that stump? There's a stump over there. Just take those other apples and put them on the stump. So he did. So there was, he had gotten 5 on the tree. So the other 2 apples he put on the stump. So he puts them on the stump, and this was during the evening, about an hour before dark. We go back to camp, we grill out, we do our camping stuff. So we go to bed. The next morning, they're still asleep. I decided I want to ride over and look at these apples are asleep. So I did, and I got over there, and I noticed there was only 1 apple on the stump. So I'm thinking, okay, deer or raccoon or something like that took that apple. Then I looked over at the tree, and there was 6 apples on the tree. There was only 5.
Wow. Oh, incredible.
So they had taken the other apple and put it on the tree.
He managed to put it on the tree.
Yeah, and immediately when that happened, I'm thinking to myself, I wonder if they were watching him try to put that apple up there, and it kept falling off, so they were showing him.
That was my thought too.
Yeah. So it was cool things like that would start happening. And as I'm talking to Arla, and we're getting more involved in trying to talk to them and be friendly and gifting them, my whole perception of them changed from being afraid to being delighted when something would happen. It would be so fun. So I'm starting to get pretty excited about the chances of me actually seeing one. Although it hadn't happened yet, I did catch a couple glimpses on our property of something moving through the woods, but I'd never seen exactly what it was. So we'll go past this particular weekend. We'll fast forward about another 3 weeks. Toward the end of the season, we're down at our property, and we had taken Lane, one of our other grandkids, back down there with us. And he camps, and we go out, we do our gifting and that. And we're the next morning after we did our gifting, his mom don't live too far away, so she's going to come by and pick him up at camp and take him home. So she drives into camp, and she gets out, and we talk. And Lane gets in the car and buckles up. He's getting ready to go home with his mom, and my wife is talking to her daughter, Amanda, and she's talking, and I'm just standing beside the car listening to the conversation with my back to the woods and kind of propped up on the car, and my wife's facing the woods. And as she's talking to her daughter, she stops in mid-sentence, and I notice her looking through the woods, but she doesn't say anything. Amanda don't say anything, and she looked back at Amanda and said, well, I think I'm going to go in. I don't feel too good. I'm going to take something for a headache. And I could tell that her whole mood had changed. And I'm like, I wonder what's going on with her. And I didn't say anything. Amanda hugged her goodbye, and she drove off. And as soon as Amanda drove off, she runs over, grabs me by the arm. She said, I just saw one. I said, saw what? She said, I just saw a Bigfoot. She said, I just seen one. He poked his head around a tree and looked at me. And I'm like, really?
Wow.
So she takes me over, and it's only right across from where we were standing. I'd say 20, 25 feet. There's a big tree there. And I look around, there's nothing there. But she said that she had looked over and saw something move. And the next thing she knew, this thing was looking at her, and it smiled. She said, I could see it so clearly. She said, the eyes, everything. So she's describing it to me, and she's all excited, and I'm all excited. And enough around the bottom of that tree, you could tell something that had been standing there behind the tree. So I'm like, we both go in the camper, we sit down, and we talk about this for the rest of the day. It was one of those things that completely just changed my whole perspective. When I seen her reaction to him, and she wasn't afraid, and her saying that she didn't feel afraid because it smiled at her. I'm thinking, this is pretty cool. This is not these big hairy monsters. These are not the beasts that people tell us about, on the movies and on TV. These things are can be very friendly. So yeah, that settled me point that this is going to be something that I'm going to be trying to pursue the rest of my life. I want to find out more about them. I want to know more about them. So that that particular day, my wife and I both got extremely interested in doing research anytime we could. We started going to, we went to a conference back in 2010. Went to a conference, and then we went to Alex Midnight Walker here in Georgia had a conference in 2012. We went there and got to hear great speakers like Ron Moorhead, Scott Nelson, got to meet a bunch of really cool people, and really started getting interested and involved in the Bigfoot community, so to speak. And since I became a part of that community and started meeting people in that, I've learned that there's two sides of the community. There's some really mean people out there, and there's some really, really cool, good people that have a lot of really nice things to share. So my next few years after that, I've been dedicated to meeting as many of these people as I can. I started actually going out and investigating. I'd have people call me. I'd run a couple of, there's a local internet group here in the county that I live in that's just like a community top page. I put on there one day, has anybody ever seen a Bigfoot in this area or whatever? Of course, I got a lot of crazy emails, about people laughing and stuff, but I also got some really good ones. So I went out and started doing some investigations and uncovered some cool things. So that's kind of how everything started. Now, once my wife had the sighting, and we really started getting into it, Arla Williams and I decided that she wants to come to Georgia. She lives in Oklahoma, quite a distance from here. So she decides she wants to come to Georgia, and we're going to try to do a camp out, which is, I'm all for it. I want her to show me how she communicates. Now, Arla, she grew up when she was 6 years old. She's seen her first Bigfoot. She's got some Native American blood in her. Her grandmother was Native American, and she taught her after she had seen one when she was 6 years old to go and get your own answers, find out what they are, who they are yourself. She's had interaction for many years, and so she had a lot of super good advice, and I wanted to know how she could have, interactions the way she does, and she sees them quite often. So when she came to Georgia, it was a big thrill. We got to meet her when she did the conference here, and so the next year we decided to try to do this camp out thing. So we put together a group on Facebook. We invited a few researcher friends, and we found an area, my wife and I did, driving around that had some history. Found an area to have the camp out, and we started having the camp out there. And it's along the edge of the Chattahoochee River, and an old Indian reservation was there for years ago. And once we started doing the camp outs, that has been extraordinary, and that's led up to a lot of the things in my book. So before I go any further, do you guys have any questions?
So all this is covered in your book, and just the results of your camp out and everything. And did you get the opportunity to record any of these sounds, Keith?
I never got into doing the recording thing because I wasn't trying to prove it to anyone except for myself. But I did own a digital recorder. I tried to set the recorder out, but I would never have it on when they were making the noises. And I never could really figure out how to do that. However, when we started having the campouts, I've had some of the guys there that are a lot better at audio than I am record some sounds. And we do have some recordings from our campouts, yes.
Oh, okay. And could you give us an example of what, you all did the gifting, you all would give them fruit, apples, and what would they leave? What would they do in return?
Almost every time they would either leave a feather of some sort, or they would leave a really pretty leaf of something like that. It was almost everything that was organic. They never brought us anything.
Right.
I guess they don't have a big shopping area there. So,
no.
Whatever.
Well, no, you wouldn't expect that. No.
We've had some quartz like rocks too.
Yeah.
Evidently, the quartz thing is something big with them, and I don't know what it is, but that's happened a few times with quartz.
Now, when this Bigfoot peeked around the corner, and you smiled at your wife, could she describe what it looked like? Was it more human or more ape-like?
No, she said that the sense that she got was it was a very hairy man. She said, I didn't see She described it. She said it did have a point on top of its head that it was noticed. She said the brow ridge was very heavy. She said it was kind of like what you would think a caveman would look like, with a little more hair and a pointy head. Described. The hair was a dark color, blackish or dark brown or blackish color. There was a little bit of hair along the edges of his face. Cheekbones were bare. They didn't have any hair on the cheekbones. And it had like a very heavy bearded mustache that hang down probably, 8 or 10 inches. She said it was really hairy that way. Yeah.
So more on the human side then.
Yes. And that was the sense that she had with the expression that he had on his face.
Right.
And it really made her feel good and not afraid. She wasn't afraid of it at all. So now that's
pleasant.
That's all the kind of the dull things that's happened. We get a lot better here. So how much time do I have?
You have as much time as you like. It's fascinating. Just to say for all our listeners, Forest for Night. Where can I get that from?
That is available on almost any of the internet book sites, Amazon.com, and you can also read the reviews there. There's the one that I would suggest, and you can also get it at BarnesandNoble.com. You can also go into Barnes and Noble in the bookstore and order it. They'll ship it to the store, and you can pick it up there. But those are the easiest places to find. Now, I have sold quite a few in the UK, and I know there's several other options there in the UK as well.
Absolutely fantastic. Been so well received. The reviews here has really been mesmerizing because the level of detail is astonishing. It's one of the greatest accounts, full stop, I've heard. And the level of detail you provide is what gives it validity. It's that you're so accurate, you're so and that's what, and it really cements an actual happening, an actual account.
Yes, sir. Well, like I said, I try to document as much as I can because, it's for me, and the job that I had for the last 24 years is root cause analysis, documentation, and that's how I'm trained. It's a scientific process that I go through trying to prove or disprove anything.
Yes.
So I've tried to be as accurate as I could in the details that I log down. And when something happens, if you write it down right away, you tend to not lose some of the things that that happen. But yeah, that's I appreciate that. It was fun writing the book. It didn't take that long to do it because I've had everything written down. Now, a lot of the book I've taken pretty much just right out of my journal, even though I did post some of the journal there almost verbatim. I took most everything out of that journal, copy and paste a lot. So there's a few grammar issues there, but I'm not a professional writer. I was just trying to be accurate. But yeah, I appreciate
it. So it pretty much chronicles your evolution from when you started seeing all this activity up until the present time.
Yes,
the past 10 years or so.
Yes, sir.
So now, it's fascinating. And it has gotten some fantastic reviews on Amazon last night.
And that what's happened up to this point has been pretty fascinating. But my life and a lot of other people's lives are going to start. I've seen some life-altering change of some people that's been with us. When Arla came to Georgia and we started our campouts, my wife and I had found the place that I just told you about. And so we launched this group site on Facebook, and we pulled in our closest friends. Arla came down. I had people flying in from Colorado, some from the Bigfoot researchers groups out that way in the Colorado Rocky Mountains, Washington State. And if you see the map of the United States, it's completely far corner of the United States from Georgia. So I had people flying in from there, Texas, Oklahoma. We had a pretty big contingent of some of the best researchers that you'll ever know that came in, and we began our campouts back in 2012. The campouts started and were a huge success. Number one, and I'll have to tell you about how we discovered this place because this is a fascinating story.
Oh, please do.
My wife and I drove out to the area that we were talking or thinking about, and I had talked to Arla about to do a little more, walking around, see if we could get some photos of tracks or anything like that, see how much sign that we could see. We arrived there about 4 o'clock in the evening on a Saturday, and we had about 3 hours until it started to get dark. As soon as we pull up, I open the door of the car, and I smell a stench. The stench is so bad that it smells like something rotting or rotted meat. So I'm like, okay, I'd heard that these things could smell like that, but just in
Mhm.
case, we'd pulled into a campsite. I went to every trash can around the campsite within an area of about, a quarter of a mile and checked them. There was
Mhm.
nothing in any of the cans that was creating that smell. And there was a little steady breeze blowing from the woods to us. So to me, that smell, and being a hunter, the smell was coming from that wood line. So I
Mhm.
walked over there. I didn't see anything dead laying around. So after about an hour's worth of looking around, we decided that whatever it is, it's not anything we're going to be able to find because, we looked over pretty good the area. So I'm thinking it could be, attributed to the Bigfoot. I'd never smelled them before, so this was new for me.
Mhm.
So after that, we there's several trails on that property, and we picked a trail that ran along. There was one trail that ran along the bottom of a creek, and there was an upper trail that was along the ridge line above the creek. So we decided we'd walk the ridge line trail, the one on the top, because I think we could see better and we could see, the area a lot better. So we do. We start walking that trail. The wind's blowing from the creek is on my right.
Mhm.
The breeze is blowing from the creek towards us, kind of a crosswind. And as we're walking down the trail, the smell comes back, and we're smelling it again. And I'm like, okay, if that is the Bigfoot people that we're smelling, they're over on that trail that runs along the creek because that's where the wind's blowing from. We
Mhm.
walked that ridge line, and one of the things we found immediately was a very huge X made out of two dead trees. I don't know, they were probably 20 feet high, and they formed a perfect X there on the trail. And I'm pointing that out to my wife, and we found trees that had been bent all the way over, just like I described before. There was one that was about 10 feet high that was bent all the way over and shoved down into the ground. And it was just a perfect bowed tree. And so we're taking photos of those and we're walking down the trail, and when
Mhm.
the smell stays with us, when we hear this sound of something running up the hill in front of us, and it's coming pretty close to, it's going to pop out right there in front of us. I don't know what's about to pop out of the trail. And we look up and it's a deer. The deer is running from that creek bottom where it was to the right of us as we're walking down. And it blows across the trail just wide open. It was running really, really fast, and you could tell it was spooked. Something had scared it. And I told my wife, that's pretty unusual for a deer to
Mhm.
run out like that because normally a deer, they'll just try to sneak away. If, you're coming, they see you coming, they'll just sneak away. You won't even know they're around. So that was pretty odd behavior, I thought.
Mhm.
So we finished up that walk along that trail, and we still had about an hour before dark. And I told my wife I want to go back down to that bottom trail. If the Bigfoots were along that bottom trail, along the sandy part of that trail, we might be able to find some tracks or whatever.
Mhm. Yes.
We did. We turned around. We walked back down where we came in because you couldn't go down that hill. It was really steep. We entered the bottom trail next to the creek. We walked that trail about 200 maybe 250 yards. And we found some of the best tracks I've ever seen, impressions in the sand. There were, and I've got photos I can send you these two. There was
Oh, yes,
one
please
track.
do.
There was one track that was, I don't know, probably 12, 14 inches. It wasn't super huge, but it was pretty big. It was barefoot. And you got to remember, this is in the closer to the winter time, and I don't think anybody would be walking through the woods barefoot. This is a horse trail.
Mhm.
So we found it was extremely fresh. It hadn't been made long. And then there was a little bitty track. It was only about 4 inches long. And my wife took pictures of that one. She was like, "Oh, look, it's a little bitty one." So she
Mhm.
gets off, looking at that thing. And I decided to try to do the stride from track to track. And so I stood beside the one track, the right foot, and I had to jump to the left foot, and I couldn't even get the distance. I couldn't make it. It was still another couple feet in front of me. I couldn't clear that distance in a running, jumping stride.
Mhm.
It was a big stride. So we took those photos, and we're looking at them, and we're pretty excited about how fresh these tracks are. We go back to where we parked, and I wanted to sit out, just let it get dark, and see what happened. So we got our lounge chairs out. We sat down, and almost immediately we hear walking in the woods coming from that trail. Whatever it was, cross the road, because you could hear it get close to the road and across. When they got over into the strip of woods in front of us, we were sitting there, and all of a sudden this stick comes flying out of the woods, and it lands at my feet. And I'm looking at the stick, and I'm like, they're throwing sticks at me. The whole time we sat there, they're tossing pebbles and sticks that are landing all around me, and they're not throwing any at her. I mean, she's sitting like 10 feet away, and she's laughing because they're throwing everything at me. And I found that humorous. I laughed about it because I know they're messing with me now. So that actually gave me a really good feeling, because I think if they would have wanted to hurt me or hit me with a rock, they would have.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, so we had that going on. So as it got a little darker and they stopped throwing the sticks, we were going to go ahead and call it a night and drive back home. We were only about an hour away. So we drive home, and we're super excited and stoked about what we've seen and everything that happened. So I immediately get on the phone. I call Arla, and I tell her, I say, hey, this is the place. We're going to have fun here. And I explained to her all the things that went on. So that started our camp outs. So moving on toward, this was in the early spring, moving on toward October, we decided to have the camp out starting in October. So we had the date set. Everybody started arriving to camp out, picking up some folks from the airports, bringing them in and setting up camp and all that. So we get everything set up one afternoon, and our first annual camp out begins. And we've been doing it every year since. So we actually just put on another one. We're doing 2 a year now, because there's so many people wants to come. And we try to bring the people that we know are in it for the right reasons. And I'm not one that wants to kill a Bigfoot or a Sasquatch, because my whole thing now is, I know there are people, and the more research I've done, the more that I've been shown that by them. So I just want to have the experiences, and I want to share my experiences with anybody that I think is in it for the right reason. So again, that's one of the reasons I wrote the book, to kind of give that perspective, my perspective on what I've seen, and try to get rid of that stereotype that they're all monsters, because I don't believe that. Now, do I think there could be some that would hurt you? Absolutely, I do. But it's the same thing as if you break into someone's home with a gun, you would expect that if they've got a gun or they're able to get some, they're going to shoot back. That's the same thing I feel about them. You know, we're encroaching onto their woods, you know, their partners. And if you go in looking to hurt them, I'm quite sure that could be, they could be pretty dangerous.
Well, sure, of course. And I'm sure just like if they're closer to human, they probably all have different personalities, different likes, dislikes, and just like anybody else.
Yes, sir. And that's exactly what I found out. Now, going back to the camp out, the camp out starts in October. Everybody, the very first night, we're camping in. And I'm not camping out. I actually live pretty close, so I'm just driving there every day. So everybody goes to bed. Well, the next day I go there in the morning, and everybody has stories about, wow, they came into our camp last night. So I get to hear these stories about the Bigfoot people coming in and shaking the tents or poking the tent and touching people on their cots. This one gentleman, Tom Cantrell, was there. He had one look in his window at him while he was laying on his cot.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, it was pretty fascinating. They came in that close. But they were very playful that first night. And everybody had experiences. And the whole group was just gibbering with excitement when I got there that morning, talking about all the cool things that they had happen. And we had some prints there in camp that we were able to get. One gentleman that does audio set out, he was recorded the very next night, and we got a really good audio that night. So when we start these things, we're going to do a couple of night walks, take people, we'll go out at night. A lot of people are exploring during the day, and, people coming back with fascinating photos of all kinds of, bent over trees and little structures they had found and that. So, and it's really cool when you have that many investigators in an area, because you can really understand what's going on a lot quicker.
Right.
And we're all pretty much the same mind as far as what we're doing. So this was a fascinating couple of days. It led up to one of our night walks. During the night walk this was a Friday night, I took some people out to that same area there where we found the tracks on the trails. And we walked that bottom trail at night, just turn our flashlights on and we move a little bit, turn the lights off, and we'd just stand there and would ask if there were any around and would make a noise or whatever. Well, the first night walk we did, and I had bought one of the parabolic microphones with the
Yes.
earphones. So I bought
Right.
one of those things, and those things are great, by the way, if you want to go out and hear night sounds.
Mm-hmm.
And immediately when we walk into the area there where we're going into, there's a little bridge that you have to cross the creek that they built a footbridge there. So we crossed the footbridge, and immediately I put the parabolic on. I had everybody stop, and you could hear two of these big Bigfoot moving on opposite hills. There's one to our right, one to our left, and they're moving down the hill. You can hear them walking. You hear the footsteps very clearly on the parabolic, and they would move very, very close to our group within, I'd say, 20 feet into the brush. And as long as we stood there, they would stand there. They wouldn't make any sound other than we would hear them. We would start walking, they would start walking. It was almost like they were sentries, and they were escorting us into this area.
Oh, wow.
So I'll let different people try the parabolic and hear them for themselves. That was pretty cool when we were walking in. And then once we got in there a little ways, we've seen these really bright lights kind of up on a hill, and I'm looking at the lights and what is that? Looking, and all of a sudden you see them blink, and it's like two eyes, and they're not that far away.
Oh, wow.
That's when I first started seeing what's called eye shine, and everybody in the group got to see it. We heard it walking. We could see the things, and ever so often we'd hear a little stick whack a tree or two, just a couple of taps, not very loud.
Yeah.
Knew that they were going in with us, and that was really cool. And we had a lot of people got to participate in that. That was a very fun first one.
Yeah, and you're planning some more of these in the future. More of these campouts that are on. And...
We just finished one for doing another one in October. I'll have a lot more people. I think Bob Gimlin, if you know Bob Gimlin, I think he may come to this next one with us. I've got to be really good friends with him.
Sounds fascinating.
I just finished a conference. I've been doing conferences up in Washington State a few weeks back, and he and I talked about him coming out here. So we're going to try to do that. But now these campouts. Now that was the first one. We had a lot of cool things happen. But the next year, I had a buddy of mine, Jason, a couple other guys, and their sons wanted to go out during spring for a night walk. And I, sure, we'll do that. So my wife and I showed up one Saturday. We grilled out steaks, had a great time waiting for it to get dark. And we decided we're going to go on a night walk, just us. The boys, the younger ones didn't want to go. So my wife stayed in the camp with those boys. And the men decided we're going to go do this walk. So we jump in my truck, we pile in, all five of us. We drive down to the camp where I usually park my car going in, or my truck, and there's some people camping down there. So, I walk over, introduce myself, wanted to make sure they knew I was just going to park here. We're just going to walk back in the woods and that. Now, it's hard to explain to people what you're doing. You don't want to scare them, So I'm just telling them we're going to go back, and, we like to hear night sounds, and we record things. Like owls or whatever we hear, we like to do that. So I don't know what they were thinking at that time, but the lady that I was talking to, she says, well, when you're back there, I want you to look. I think there's a kid lost. She said, I tried to call the ranger, and I've left a message. We keep hearing a baby crying back there, a very young child.
Yeah.
I'm like, really? She said, yeah, we've heard it several times. Well, you remember the small footprints I told you we found. So I'm thinking immediately it's not a baby human, it's that you're hearing. But I didn't tell her anything. So I told her we would definitely take time to look, and we would call out and see if So we go on this walk, and we start down that trail, and of course they pick us up on each side of the bridge and we're walking in with, and we're walking down the trail. And this particular night felt very different. Felt like there was something energetic. There was like an energy there. There was something, you could tell something was going to happen. We were all kind of anticipating that too. So as we're walking along, we start getting these whistles back and forth the trail from one end to the other. Whistling back and forth, and it was so unreal to hear. It was like, wow. And you knew, I mean, we knew exactly what was doing the whistling. And so we're wondering, okay, what are they doing now? Are they just making sure that we're not going too far? Or I know they're keeping an eye on us. So we're standing in the trail at this point, listening to the whistles back and forth. It stops, and we see these two really bright lights on the hill. Now, this is the hill that my wife and I was on the first time. I'm thinking when I saw it immediately, I go, that's a flashlight. Somebody's in. Now, who is back here this far with a flashlight? Unless maybe there is a kid lost and somebody's looking for the kid. So I kind of yell out. Nothing happened. He's just standing there. Well, after about 5 minutes, those lights that were on the hill starts coming down the hill. And as it got closer, we could hear it walking on two legs. Those bright white lights started getting smaller and a little dimmer, and to the point to where it looked like two pin lights that you would hold up side by side. It wasn't one big bright light anymore. Bright lights. It was two little pin lights.
And how far away do you think they were from you?
When we first saw them, probably 100 yards. As it moved in closer and closer, it got to within 20 yards and stopped right across the creek on a hillside. And when it got that close and we could hear the bipedal walking, we could tell most definitely that light, those lights were eyes. Those two lights were eyes, and they were a bright whitish yellow. They were side by side. They were stationary, and you could see every time he blinked. It was close enough that you could see him blink.
Oh, wow.
And there was the light on the eyes was bright enough to where there was a limb that covered part of his head, and he would try to step up and look over the limb, then he would look under the limb. And this was pretty significant because we went back over the very next day and measured that limb, and the limb was 10.5 feet. So we know he was about 10.5 feet tall.
Could you see an outline or anything of a figure, or just the eyes?
It was just the eyes. It was so dark that night. There was no moon, which a lot of people call it eye shine. Well, eye shine is something that's produced by light, and your eye is the eye, and it shines, it reflects back. This was not that. This was making. These eyes were making their own light, and this is the first time I've seen this to this. I've seen the eye shine before, but this was the first time I'd seen it like this, and this was mesmerizing. We all, every one of us, the three of us were standing up front, and the other two that was in the back, we were all watching it. And Jason decides he's going to do what he thinks is a greeting grunt. So he does this grunt noise, and he had heard others do. They had said these Bigfoot make these greeting sounds. So he does a really gruff, like that. And as soon as he did that, immediately those eyes that were bright whitish yellow turned deep orange red, like you would put on the tail light. Your brake lights would pop up. That's how bright they were.
Yeah, it could have been a mating call.
I don't know what it was, but I started apologizing. When that happened, the whole mood changed, and you could tell that he didn't like that noise at all. So I started apologizing. Like, I'm sorry, we did that. Please accept our apology, because I know this thing's pretty big just from where he's standing and that.
Yeah. Probably thought it was a challenge of some sort.
I don't know what he thought, but all I knew was I had to make some come across there. That scared me, and it did the rest of the guys too. So he stood there after about a minute, after I apologized, and we all apologized, and that his eyes slowly went back to that whitish color, and he simply turned his head and walked back over the hill, and that was it.
And that was it, huh? Wow. And that's just amazing stories. I'm sure you probably have 100 amazing stories, Keith.
I've got some really good ones.
Good ones. How do people get a hold of you in case if they have more questions? Is there any way they could get in contact with you?
Sure, they can look me up on Facebook. I'm on there. Just explain where you in a PM who you are. If you heard the show and you want to talk to me, explain that there. I've got a big following there now, so just PM me and let me know, because I'm trying to weed through a few. I get some crazy.
Right, I'm sure. Yeah. So
I'd be more than happy to try to help anybody out or talk to them.
Well, that's fantastic. We'd love to have you on again in the future. Continue your stories, and they're fascinating.
Yeah,
and that's what we need to do. We need to get more people aware of what's really going on.
That's right, because I haven't even gotten to the really good stuff.
We will have to have you back.
I have. If anybody that's listening in the United States, I've been doing conferences Just finished one, like I said, in Washington, and I'm doing another one there next year and a couple others. So look me up if you were able to get to any of the conferences here. Be glad to shake your hand and talk. Thank you, sir. Appreciate that.
Thank you so much, Keith. Thank you so much, Keith. Yeah, exactly. I was just imagining that you're very, very genuine. Very interesting stories. I just picture them in my head.
Thank you, sir.
Great storyteller. And that was an amazing interview with Keith Bearden, author of Forest Friends of the Night, my story of the Bigfoot people. He's a great storyteller. It's chilling the way he just walks you through all of his experiences with Bigfoot and what he had out there in the forest. He actually experienced them right there, live and in person with these creatures.
It was so genuine because the amount of detail he had, I was just mesmerized. Anybody knows me, it's hard to shut me up, and I was just mesmerized by his account. Now, if there's anyone listening out there and you'd like to get in touch, maybe something one of the guests has said, maybe you'd like to get in touch with one of our guests, just email us at theparanormalchronicles@aim.com and just put in the subject what you'd like to talk about, whether it's Bigfoot, general paranormal, or anything like that. But what a story. And please, if there's anyone out there you fancy a read tonight, over the weekend, go out. Keith Bearden, author of Forest Friends of the Night, my true story of the discovery of the Bigfoot people. There is so much more to come. And as we said at the top of the show, myself and Dave, lots more Bigfoot stuff coming up this month. We're going to be talking about UK Bigfoots, and we've got a guy who's actually filmed the Bigfoot. So we've got lots more coming up. Now, what have we got coming up next, Dave?
Well, for another mesmerizing interview, we have Kevin Malik of the Northern Wisconsin Paranormal Society, and he's going to share with us his encounters with Bigfoot that he had a few years ago, that he actually experienced and witnessed. And it's another chilling story of another encounter with Bigfoot.
It's strange. It's such a strange story. Kevin, this is the thing that got him into the paranormal. He's probably one of the hardest working people in the paranormal community. He's the founder of the Northern Wisconsin Paranormal Society. He's founder of Lake Monstrosities. He's in everything to do with the paranormal. And I think it was this event. This was the thing that brought him into the world, because it was such a strange experience. If you want a strange Bigfoot experience, you need to keep listening, because this is an incredible interview. And what I love about Kevin is that he has such a wealth of knowledge on not just Bigfoot, but loads of other paranormal subjects, which he kind of tied in for us, didn't he?
Yes, he did. He kind of tied in with that and left us open for lots of other good shows and great interviews too.
Oh, we're going to be having him back. He will be back. Now, before we go to Kevin, we just quick few important messages. Few ways how to support the show if that's what you'd like to do. So after the break, we'll be speaking to Kevin Malik, founder of the Northern Wisconsin Paranormal Society, and his true chilling account of his experience with a Bigfoot.
You are listening to the Paranormal Chronicles Network. Please remember to subscribe so you never miss an episode. Visit theparanormalchronicles.com for paranormal news, reports, pictures, audio, and video content. Find us on Facebook at The Paranormal Chronicles. Together, we explore the unknown.
Do you believe in ghosts? A Most Haunted House is the true best-selling paranormal account that has chilled the world. Available on Kindle, on Audible, and in paperbook. Dare you read? Dare you step inside a most haunted house?
Good evening, creatures. It is I, Gavin. Now, if you're enjoying our show and would like to support us without chilling your bank account, then when you shop online at Amazon, simply head to theparanormalchronicles.com website. Click support us on the left-hand side, follow the link to Amazon, and shop away. Your goods won't cost you any extra, but we get a few pence and a few cents as a commission. Think of it as a tip jar, and your support will help us chill, thrill, educate, and entertain for future broadcasts. Next time you shop Amazon, think theparanormalchronicles.com.
The Paranormal Chronicles.
I'm delighted to be able to introduce our next guest, which is Kevin Mallett. Now, Kevin is a paranormal historian and founder of the Northern Wisconsin Paranormal Society. He's ufologist and certified field investigator with MUFON. Together with Jennifer Selsey, he hosts the critically acclaimed Paraversal Universe radio show on the ParanormalKing.com radio network. Together, they run the Northwoods Paranormal Resource Center in Rhinelander, Wisconsin. Kevin is a writer for Supernatural Magazine and expert on all things cryptid. Welcome to the show, Kevin.
Welcome. Thank you for having me.
Welcome to the show, Kevin. How are you? How are you, Jennifer?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Good. Thank you for being with us today. I know that you all have been quite knowledgeable and have a lot of experience in the paranormal field as well as the cryptid field. Kevin, you being a paranormal historian as well, ufologist, and you're pretty much interested in pretty much everything paranormal and cryptid. I've had you on my show before, Event Horizon, and we were discussing a Bigfoot sighting that you had in the past. It was very interesting, and I was hoping you could share that with us today.
Absolutely. The sighting I had, I was in my 20s. I'm 43 now. The sighting was one of the catalysts that led me to found the Northern Wisconsin Paranormal Society. It was a Saturday morning. It was 10:30. It was the hottest day of the year. In fact, it set a record that day. Yeah. It was like 104, 105. We had our shirts off. We had the sunroof open. And we were driving down a county road, County C in Wisconsin. And my buddy drives pretty quick. He's a speed racer. And so he was going like 70 miles an hour. And we come around the bend in the highway, and there's a figure crossing the road. Comes up on the side and starts crossing. And I nudge my buddy. I go, hey, look, it's Bigfoot. You know, at first thinking it's not. Or at first thinking that it looked like a Bigfoot, but it must be something else, you know. And my brain is trying to register what I'm seeing. And it looked like a tall, hunched over old man carrying 2 5-gallon buckets, swinging side to side. Like they were long strides. But as the creature crossed the road and started going into the underbrush, by then we had covered easily probably about a quarter of the distance, enough that I can tell that it was all the same color, which was like a paneling brown, like a tan color, and I had crossed the highway in like 4 or 5 steps, and that what I thought were 2 5-gallon buckets were in fact its forearms. The arms go all the way almost to the ground, and they're very massive. And so anyways, so the figure crosses the road and goes back into the underbrush on the other side, and without even prompting my buddy, when he came up to the spot, he stopped the car, you know, because we had both just seen something very unusual. And he looks over at me and he goes, you want to go in there after it? And I was like, are you crazy? Did you see how big it was? And we couldn't see it. It was like when we stopped the car and we looked over, I expected to see like a driveway or a trail or anything man-made. And the old man, you know, carrying 2 5-gallon buckets. And I could say to myself, oh, okay. For a minute there, I thought I was seeing something. No, it wasn't. That was not the case. We came up to the spot. There was no driveway, no trail, not so much as anything, a sign or nothing man-made. It was just woods. The figure we saw had completely disappeared. And I don't know if he had like jumped on all fours and went flat to the ground, or if he had just disappeared, or what the deal was. I do know if it would have been an old man carrying 2 5-gallon buckets, there'd be no way he can get through all that rampant undergrowth and move along the point where we wouldn't be able to see him. He would be, you know, in fact, it would be, because the undergrowth by the county road is thicker, you know, because it gets more sunlight and stuff. You know, it was just one of them things to where we realized that we saw a Bigfoot. And so all the way home, you know, we're discussing it. Like, you know, no one's going to believe this. This is nuts. And it was so hot out that the first thing we thought is, could this be a hoax of some kind? And it was like, no, not today. It is so hot today for anybody to put on Chewbacca suit or something.
Yeah.
and no, it was and to maneuver through the brush like it did. And no, we ruled that out. A bear? No, a bear walked like Frankenstein, all slow with the arms kind of straight out. You know, this thing was striding, like the arms were swinging side to side, and the knuckles were like scraping the ground kind of thing. And the leg strides were long. So when we got home, we looked at a map to see where it was going. And it was going towards a water source. There's a river in the area. And so at that point, we kind of figured that this creature was somewhere he normally wouldn't have been at that time of day, but because it was so hot out that he was probably suffering, and maybe his life was even in danger at that point, and he needed a water source. And he was willing to risk walking around in the broad daylight, crossing a county highway. It's boonies up here. We're in the Northwoods of Wisconsin, so it's not like a state highway but it's still, for us, it's a county trunk highway. And it was just a real, and for me, I can rule out hallucination because my buddy saw it too, and we were both sober. It was daylight out. It was just it was an incredible experience. Yeah. So anyways, we figured we were probably downwind. The way we came around the bend, like not a sharp corner, but kind of a corner, just a bend in the road or whatever, and that it probably figured it was safe, and it was just going to scoot across the highway, and we came whipping around, and bam, we saw him. Where he went to, I don't know. He either disappeared because, it was, you can see he crosses a road, it goes down, and then it goes up. So we would have been able, it's not like he would have been able to, go down a hill or something where we couldn't see him anymore. It was the way it was set up. If he would have continued walking, he would have had an incline before he got over the ridge and decline. And he wasn't there, and we couldn't see him, and there was nothing moving around, no branches or anything like that. It was just silent, and it's like, wow, a huge figure just crossed the road here. Just amazing. So, then from that point on, I realized that Bigfoot is real. I had a couple UFO experiences too. So between the UFO experiences and then seeing this Bigfoot, and then of course just my interest in it, was my mom had bought me an encyclopedia set when I was like 10 or 11, and it was like I forget what publishing company, but anyways, it was 25 books, all on different paranormal topics and subjects.
Oh, wow.
Book, and it was geared kind of towards kids. I mean, when you look at it today as an adult, it's like, oh, this is kind of like a kid's book, but for me, that was my introduction into paranormal. My mom had a really impressive library, all kinds of books on mysteries and unexplained mysteries and stuff, and so I get this encyclopedia set all to my own as a kid, and then I have the experiences. It's just one thing on top of another. At some point, I'm like, well, I got enough experiences and at this point enough knowledge that I should be an asset to some paranormal society. So I went to look for one, and there wasn't one up here. So that's why I started the society. So we cover 7 categories now. Used to be 6. We added forbidden archaeology to that.
Oh, okay, that's a great subject. Absolutely.
Brilliant.
But we cover ghosts and haunted places, cryptozoology, aliens and UFOs, metaphysics, theology, conspiracies, and now forbidden archaeology. The thing with the forbidden archaeology is, like with different objects, some of them were haunted objects. Some of the stuff would end up in theology if it was religious based. But overall, we decided that we needed something for specifically like UPAs, out of place artifacts and whatnot. So, so them are the 7 categories we cover. Our society covers them, and we're involved at different, we investigate for families. We specialize in families who are traumatized by paranormal experiences. We have a wonderful team or a society filled with paranormal professionals. We have a resident psychotherapist who works with us. He's a core member. Wow. Of course, Jennifer's a psychic medium and religious demonologist. And we have Reverend Charming Gwen Pond, she's got a doctorate in theology, religion. Of course, we have a documentarian. We have a few just general paranormal investigators, and then myself, and we have another ufologist who used to be the state director for Wisconsin MUFON, part of the team. So we got a really well-rounded team looking at everything from multiple facets and angles, and we kind of meet in the middle, and so we work the cases, and otherwise we'll be involved with things like expos or paracons or campouts. We got a Bigfoot campout planned in May.
Oh, fantastic.
We're going to go out with, it's going to be Northern Wisconsin Paranormal Society. We're going to have a couple members of the Fox Valley Ghost Hunters, because they've been asking for a couple of years now to go out with us, because they only do ghosts, and they're like, man, we'd really like to try this Bigfooting. Yeah. Like, take you guys with us. I mean, they're awesome investigators. And then we're going to hook up with the Wisconsin Bigfoot Research Society.
And you're going to have your joint investigations there.
Well, what we'll do is all 3 of there's a couple members from that group, a couple members from our group, a couple members from Fox Valley. We're going to meet in one area in the middle of the woods. It's called Stevens Creek Chimney. It used to be an old bed and breakfast, which had burned down. Big mystery behind it. It's considered a haunted location. Plus, it's surrounded by nothing but woods. There are no houses anywhere within miles. It's just we thought, man, what better location than that location to not only all night squatching, but at our base camp we'll have, if nothing is happening with the squatching, we can try stuff with the paranormal, with the ghosts and stuff. But we just got this. One of our members had just bought a Kinect camera. That's something I'd like to try out in.
What is a Kinect camera?
Well, it maps out the environment and it picks up motion. It's very similar to like the Nintendo Wii. People are familiar with that. The interactive video games now, where you have a camera on you and it picks up your movement and it maps it, so you can actually like literally fight with your arms or
okay.
And what would happen is people would be playing this video game, and of course it maps them out as a stick figure and stuff. All of a sudden, like it would map out another figure next to them or something.
Oh wow, yeah.
Look over and there's nobody standing there. It's like, what the hell is it mapping out? You got the TV and you see a stick figure, same size as you. So anyway,
this camera can see another realm or another wavelength or something.
Yeah, it's we've tried it so far in one investigation. Well, two. We tried it on one investigation, and we did some tests with it at another location that we investigated like 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And the first time we used it, we got two figures throughout the course of the whole. There's like a 12-hour investigation, 10-hour investigation. We got two figures that it mapped out that were not present. And
oh, amazing!
One of the figures, it was interesting, was almost like a halfling-sized figure, almost even smaller, like a small child, and was floating in the air. It was really unique. And when Jennifer reached her hand up to it, you could see her too. She's mapped out in the camera also. Yeah. The thing like curled up like in a fetal position, like it didn't want to be touched. Yeah. And so we were able to interact with this too. So I mean, can you raise your arm? If you can ask questions that way, and if you see it raise its arm, it's just an awesome tool. And I thought, man, not only are we into cryptozoology, but we're into paracryptozoology. In fact, one of the like pages we have is called Paracryptozoology on Facebook.
Paracryptozoology. What does that entail? I've never heard of
that. That's the notion that some animals that we have yet to discover or have yet identified may have supernatural abilities or powers that humans don't possess.
Oh, okay.
Whatever that may be. We hear about Bigfoot's disappearing, turtles. Right. I've heard stories where people say that one will pull another right out of the ground. Or, I mean, just people report Bigfoots, and the strange lights in the sky. And there's just enough of these reports that you can't really just keep discounting after report after report after report, tens, in the hundreds into the thousands. Something's going on. I mean, and we're talking, like we were talking with Gavin, and he was saying before the show, he's like, in England it's not as big as it is in America with the Bigfooting.
Right.
But if you look at maps, I've seen a couple maps that have been put together where people have mapped out every Bigfoot sighting in the UK, and there's actually, there's enough dots on the map that it's, to me, that's almost just more proof that there's something.
Somebody's seeing something. They're seeing something.
People are seeing Bigfoot on a smaller land location where we should especially with drones, especially with compared, like you'd figure we would be able to document ape-like creature by now.
Yeah. Well, I've heard that Bigfoot does have odd abilities. It could even make you see things or not see things.
Sure.
So it can, mind with its mind or something that you could be walking in front of you, but it can control that you can't see it. It can do something that you can't see it or you won't remember it. Or
Les Stroud talks about mind speak, or talks to him in his mind, and other people have reported that. Some people, like you said, they believe that somehow make itself invisible at times. It can make you, now if it's making you see things that you normally don't see, I kind of feel if you're experiencing something like that, you might want to look into the demonic a little bit. Just like if you're in a house, all of a sudden you see bugs everywhere, and then you start freaking out, and then they're just gone, and you're like, oh, you just had that kind of stuff. To me, is I would say, well, you might want to look into the demonic, but
that's happened here in my house. That happened a few months ago.
Ooh.
Yeah, that we have a guest bathroom that nobody uses ever, nobody, and all of a sudden I walk in there and it's full of flies, just full of them, and that bathroom's sealed. There's no way anything can get inside, and it took me a couple of days to get rid of them. But the funny thing is, they would not come out of the bathroom. They wouldn't go to the hallway. They wouldn't come out. They wouldn't come out of anywhere. They would stay right there,
Right,
and not leave.
And
so,
you're trying to figure out, how did they get here? Where's the food for them?
There's no food. There's nothing in there. That bathroom, nobody uses it. There's nothing in there. There's no food source. There's no, the trash can's completely empty. Nobody uses it. It's just there. So how they got in, I don't know. I checked the skylight. It's completely sealed. There was absolutely no way anything could gotten in there. No bugs, nothing. And that's why we couldn't figure out what was going on in that room.
Is there a bad presence in there, Dave?
I don't know. But like I said, nobody uses it, and I don't feel anything in the house. So that's when we thought that was really, really odd that it would. And mind you, this was in the middle of winter. It was around I think around December, January that this was happening. So it's cold here. It's no flies here in that time of the year. So I thought that was really, really odd. And these weren't like little flies. These were the big flies. Those big, I guess we call them horse flies. They're big suckers. They can bite you if they want. So it took me a couple of days to get rid of them. It took about half a can of spray and some fly strips and all that, but eventually they all died and they never came back. So that's what we thought was weird. And I thought, well, something must be going on, or something followed me home from somewhere.
Something had latched onto you, Dave.
I guess so, because at the time we were having a rough time of it, and a few of the things were going on that was kind of weird. But once the flies disappeared, everything seemed to go back to normal.
I have a question for you, Kevin. Going back 20 years ago, you had your sighting of what you believe to be a Bigfoot. Was there any other sightings since or before that you've researched? Is it a known area for Bigfoot, or was it just a total anomaly? As you said, it's very hot. Maybe Bigfoot was fighting for survival, trying to get to a water.
Well, it's interesting you asked that. As you stated, we write for Supernatural Magazine, and I decided better thing to write about than something that is it's true. Especially in this field. It dawned on me that I had never wrote out my entire account and released it to the public. So I did that. I sat down and I wrote it out. We published it in Supernatural Magazine. Once that happened, I got a couple of letters from people who had there are two other Bigfoot sightings in the same area where I saw mine. There's one of the sightings is in the area, give or take a few miles. There's a abandoned potato farm, and one of the sightings was somebody had seen what they thought was a Bigfoot walking through this abandoned potato farm. The second one that came through was similar to ours, where somebody had seen somebody or something cross the highway that they couldn't explain. And I thought, man, them are all three within not only and this is right outside of Starks, Wisconsin, and there's an area in the Starks location that's called the Ginty Triangle, and it's a triangle of within a few miles of a triangle spread out a few miles, and within this triangle there's all this paranormal activity. There's a couple of houses in there where there's murders and demonic stuff. There's people have been killed within this triangle. There's a couple what we call just abandoned haunted houses where actually we documented some evidence that got us on news from one of these locations.
Wow. Kevin, I wanted to ask you on your Bigfoot sighting, just to give the listeners some perspective, that you said it was a county road. So is it very well maintained, and does it get a lot of traffic, or what was the traffic conditions that time of day?
I'd say average. 10:30 in the morning. A lot of people are at church then. I don't know. We came around, like I said, we came around a bend. It's a straight stretch. They're maintained by the county. They're not not maintained by the state, so they don't have like the big. I don't know how it is in.
Such a rural.
Yeah, it's just. The trees come close to the highway.
Yeah.
They don't clear it out for deer on the sides. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Like state highways do. Where they don't do that on the county highways. They just county highways. I don't know. So yeah, it's just a highway. It's got the dotty line, and
so the brush on the side would be kind of thick.
Sure, because
pretty much just blended right into the underbrush. It kind of disappeared in there. And what I found interesting, you were saying that it had to run uphill. It couldn't have just disappeared down. So you should have seen it going over the hill.
That's what I'm saying. And we even stopped the car and we're looking out. Where is it? Who was that? Yeah. It's either a Bigfoot that just disappeared or a hunched down old man.
It just hid in the brush.
We would have seen him fumbling through the brush. You can't take two pickle buckets, fill them with something and walk through a bunch of undergrowth and bramble and whatever else.
Did you see any disturbance when you got to that spot where he went in, like broken branches or anything like that? Maybe
nothing was moving. It was like nothing had been there.
Okay.
Nothing had been there. Like he walked into this, the car came up. We looked more. If my friend would have asked me that today, you want to go in there after it, I would have said yes.
Today,
Because, but 20 years ago, it was just like, no. At that time, it was like, that was just so big. I mean, the way it walked, the way it crossed the highway, like it did.
How difficult would it have been for you actually to gone after it?
Again, we're in shorts. We're in Bermuda shorts. We don't have any shirts on. I had tennies on, but I don't know if he had sandals or what, or tennis shoes. So we would got scratched up pretty good because there's, like raspberries, and there's, they got the little thorny things on them, and there's just like, small bushes and undergrowth. The woods up here are, thick, but when you get by the county roads or any roads, because the trees are cleared, it gets more sunlight than the average woods. So you get more stuff growing that's not tall trees.
It was hot day, but it wasn't necessarily dry. You did get rain, so it wasn't a bunch of scrub brush and stuff on the side of the road. It was just thick, dense.
Yeah,
bushes.
Were you frightened?
No, I wasn't frightened because we hadn't been approached or threatened, or if he would have came running out of the woods at us, holy shit.
Yeah.
But maybe I was a little more not frightened, but just like again, I'm not generally one to go tempt fate, take a stick and poke a hornet's nest, things like that. And again, it was just a really. I'll never forget that experience. And I'm so glad someone was with me to see the same thing.
Do you think there's a connection, Kevin, between UFOs and Bigfoot?
I'm undecided on that. I can't discount that some Bigfoot sightings also have lights in the sky. I will say most of the Bigfoot, the majority don't, but there is a percentage that does. I will say as a ufologist that there are, depending on what ufologist you ask, there's going to be anywhere between, I think it's like 68 different known alien species all the way up to 150 some, depending on if you're getting, are you getting it from the Russian government? Are you getting it from the American government? They all have their things that leak out. So yeah, I mean, if there's like, 100 different alien species running around, sure, one of them could look like Chewbacca.
The reason I ask is, you made a very good point earlier about you explored where in the world Bigfoot had been seen. I'm not a huge knowledgeable person on the Bigfoot phenomena. Because of this show and because of you and Dave, I've done some research. And Bigfoot, there are many, many sightings in the UK. But one of them, which I find is really, really interesting, is in the Rendlesham Forest. It's called the shug monkey. It is described as a large ape, giant dog and bear. It's almost like this chimera, this weird animal wandering this ancient woods of Rendlesham. Rendlesham is where our Roswell occurred in the 1980s.
Yep.
And I was wondering maybe there was some kind of connection between the two. It's berserk that there's this weird creature wandering in the woods where there was known UFO activity, possibly a crashed UFO.
Yeah, the Rendlesham Forest is, when you say that, I instantly think of the UFO phenomenon that happened out there. Jim Penniston. When our show very first started out, I had asked him if he'd come on the show because I wanted to talk about that. And at the time, he didn't come on, unfortunately. So I don't, at this point, I don't know if we'll ever get a chance to interview him or not. He definitely has an interesting story to tell, and that binary code which he came up with zeros and ones that they were able to translate into coordinates and a message or something. I mean, that's amazing stuff. I mean, that's really amazing stuff. That's intriguing. That's does it surprise me that people have seen like you said, like a Bigfoot kind of, or a chimera type of creature, whether it's on all fours or all twos. People are seeing weird creatures out there, something like you see in mythology or something. Some of these ancient forests, that doesn't surprise me at all. Especially with the if you look back through the history all the way into antiquity, the different religions and practices and rituals and beliefs and the different things that have gone on in our past. Who knows? I mean, I tend to believe that the ancient alien theory, to a point. I also believe in God and creation, but I believe in God. I believe in that he's responsible for creating things. We'll just say that. But I also believe that our history, like just like Hancock says, Graham Hancock, we're a species with amnesia. And yes, secret societies have the records. They know what has happened in our human past. Them secrets are what make them secret societies. That and their religious demonic worship or whatever. But they have, whether you're talking, I think that these are the secrets that would free us. Give us our true history. Give us our true past. Give us, obviously that, when you see stone blocks that are 100 million tons. I mean, we do this stuff today. I mean, it's like, who built this stuff? Not cavemen. Obviously not cavemen. Don't even give me that. I have a lot of respect for the forbidden archaeology that they've done, stuff that they've come up with, and the theories that have been put out. It's refreshing because it's not just what we're fed with a spoon in grade school.
Now, one thing I found very interesting during my research into this was when Mount St. Helens erupted in the early 80s, there were witness reports that they saw military helicopters carrying off large animals bigger than a bear. Do you think it's conceivable that the military have knowledge or maybe have bodies or even alive Bigfoots? Do you think they're aware of this?
Absolutely. And here's the thing, okay? There's many angles to this. One, if you acknowledge Bigfoot, then you have this issue of forestry and mining where it becomes an endangered species. And if you have an endangered species in a forest, you can't go in there and clear cut a forest. There are laws to protect that. So they either have to get rid of all the laws, which whether I'm sure they'll do eventually. I mean, the way the government's growing out here, it's just insane. America's turning into a different country as we speak. Yeah, so you have that. Okay, so that's going to upset all kinds of lobbies. We're talking millions and billions of dollars in forestry alone. So there's that angle, and then of course the whole idea that there's beings out there. Again, I used to be on the fence even up to 5 years ago as far as is Bigfoot an interdimensional being or just a regular Gigantopithecus we haven't documented properly yet. But with all the drones and trap cameras, and not just drones and trap cameras out there that can't find it, but some of the anomalous photos they are capturing. You know, when they try to find it, you know, they put out bait, put out the trap camera, all of a sudden they get weird anomalies, you know, funny like lightning phenomenon or weird orbs or just light anomaly stuff, and then their bait's gone in the next picture. Just weird stuff like that. And it's not just one or two. I mean, there's dozens of people out there that are putting all kinds of time and energy into this, serious time and energy, full-time job kind of time and energy, and are just not getting anything. They're getting the same results basically that Les Stroud talks about, and he's having the same issues. You know, he's saying like, I don't understand why we can't find this at this point. There's got to be something more to this. And as a paranormal historian, and just looking at everything I know, that I gotta say, the whole idea of paracryptozoology, the fact that there is something going on with some of these cryptids that is, they're doing things that humans don't do. I mean, evading. Yeah. It's nothing else. I mean, they can evade in a way that our best ninjas wish they could. So
Les Stroud, he's that the survivalist.
Survivor
guy.
Man.
Yeah, he's that survivor man, and you know that's for him to say something's out there. That's he's pretty reputable. You know, right. I don't think he would willingly endanger his reputation or his credibility. So I think that's pretty credible. That put me pretty much over the fence, because I was on the fence as well for a while. But hearing him, and he came out with his show and everything, I think that kind of put me more to the believer side than anything else.
Plus, we have
him being out there.
We had, another angle or facet to this, which may or may not be significant to Gavin's question, was the missing 411 issue topic. And that's with there are thousands of people in state parks that are going missing, and the state parks aren't keeping records of this stuff. So David Paulides just wrote a book on this. He spent years and years doing research. I believe he comes from a police kind of background, so he's got good investigative skills and stuff. And so he went and he started researching this, and he found that first of all, he asked the state parks if they had any what their figures were on this and the information and stuff, and they wouldn't give it to them. Some of them said, we don't keep records of that stuff. It's like, you're kidding me. You have people missing in your state park and you're not keeping records of this? What's going on? That, again, yes, I think the government knows what's going on. I think that it wouldn't surprise me in the least if they didn't have a couple of these creatures somehow confined somewhere. If they're able to do that. Again, it's at the least you would figure they would try to do secret recon missions with their best Green Berets and Army Rangers and Navy SEALs to go out there and try to find one of these things. And they can't, so if they're doing that, they're keeping the information to themselves. We're not getting it. And again, just to come out and say, okay, America, Bigfoot is real. It does exist. They're going to have to give us a reason why we haven't been able to document it properly. I just think that even if they were to come out and say there's nothing supernatural about these beings, it would still cause issues. But I think there is supernatural, and that in itself is reason to cover it up.
Yeah, then you start questioning reality if you start doing that. If the government comes out and acknowledges this, then you question, well, what else is fake? What else have they lied about? So, but yeah, I've heard that too. Well, I heard, as far as the Mount St. Helens issue that Gavin brought up, I heard that as well. That the military actually went out there and was picking up the Bigfoot bodies so people couldn't see them. They were leaving the humans on the ground. They were leaving other animals on the ground. They were just picking up the dead Bigfoots that were out there.
Interesting.
And then bringing them out and on flatbeds truck covered in tarps. Apparently there was quite a few, is what my understanding was.
They made, you guys remember that mockumentary, Mermaids?
Yes.
Okay. I call it a mockumentary because there's false information in there. They had alleged that there were mermaid bodies washing up when they did these underwater sonar tests that the Navy would. And same thing, where you'd have a situation where all of a sudden you have a beach that has a bunch of beached whales, a bunch of beached dolphins, and guess what? A few mermaid bodies wash up too. So, the government races down there in hazmat suits and everything else. What are they doing down there? Why do they block off the beach? That's part of the mockumentary, but there are reports where that has happened. That has nothing to do with the mockumentary. So that element of it, that specific element, does our government have, if there are mermaids, and the aqua ape theory, the fact that we just have wet on our fingers, the way our body is structured. If you believe in evolution and Darwinism, you gotta believe in mermaids. Okay, I'm not a Darwinism guy. Okay, I believe in minor evolution. I don't believe in major evolution. I would think that same thing. If we found out that we had human brothers swimming around in the ocean, that's going to raise all kinds of moral issues. I mean, our ocean's bad enough polluted as it is. Yeah. With us, and between the garbage and the stuff that the Navy's doing and everything else, it's just, and we have the Page Lake Monstrosities, which is the largest aquatic mysteries Facebook group out there right now.
Right.
Check it out, everyone. And we see that stuff, all the bad news and information coming out of the oceans right now. It's just day after day after day. It's nuts. Not to change topics, but
and it's amazing because we don't know what's out there. We know more about the moon than we do the ocean. So
I'm not so sure.
Anything could be out there. Anything.
You know about it. I think that the government knows what's going on with the moon. There are theories about the moon. Some people report that every so often you can see a wave go over the moon. Like amateur astronomers are taping. They'll be filming the moon or whatever, and a wave will go over it, almost like it's a hologram or something. Now, the moon itself is anomalous for a lot of reasons. The fact that it doesn't spin, the fact that we always see one side of it, the fact that it's identically the same size as the sun during a solar eclipse. That alone, the odds of that are like 1 in a trillion or some ridiculous number. The fact that all of its craters, no matter how wide, are all the same depth. The fact that when they hit it with that satellite, it rang like a bell for 12 hours. There's just all kinds of weirdness with the moon. And with the moon landings and then you got the stuff Richard Hoagland talks about with the and not just Richard Hoagland and many others as well, the things on the moon that they've airbrushed out, and Mars. And
possibly one of the reasons we didn't go back is because they did find something up there.
Exactly.
And the more people that go up there, the more of a chance it is for it to get out into the public.
Well, with the moon landing, they say, is it real or is it fake? I think some of it's real. I think some of it's fake. I think we may have gone up there, found something that we didn't expect to find, or were bullied off of the moon or something freaked us out, or who knows what. But for whatever reason, we felt it was in our best interest not to go back. I know that something was blown up on the moon at one point. We don't get much about why or what, or if even it happened, or what's going on with that. Yeah, just, again, so much weirdness with the moon.
Yeah.
And the fact that if you go back in our history, I'm just going to be safe on this. I'm going to say between 7,000 and 10,000 years ago, there are no records of the moon before that.
Really?
Yeah, interesting. So I think the oldest legend of the moon we have is from the Zulu tribe. And that goes back about, again, as far back as mankind, 6, 7, 8,000 years, but that's about as far back as we can trace it. But you don't walk in a cave and see old cave paintings of the moon. It's just weird. Why not?
Yeah, not to mention it. You see the sun, but not the moon.
Good grief. Now, Bigfoot is seen as a very spiritual creature, but there have been cases where Bigfoot is seen to be a bit violent. It gets a little tasty and has hurt a few people or animals. Do you think that Bigfoot is a gentle creature, or is it like any animal that when provoked, it could do do harm.
I'd like to apologize. I didn't mean to get off topic there before.
No, not at all. It's fascinating, Kevin. Do not apologize, sir. It is, you're opening our minds to a whole slew of possibilities. We can do another show on mermaids and the moon. I think that would be fantastic. If you would like to come back whenever you're free. For the people who tune into Bigfoot, would you say it's a spiritual creature, or do you think it could do harm to people if provoked?
I believe both. I believe if you provoke it, yeah, it will defend itself like anybody would. I do believe it's a spiritual creature. It is to many of the paracryptozoologists I know. It's very spiritual. There are people that claim to communicate with it. Obviously, the Native Americans have all their legends, and to them, it's a very spiritual animal. I mean, that's deep within their religious vocabulary or dictionary or whatever. Yeah, and I think. But at the same time, I think like if you startled one accidentally or threatened it or one of its younger ones, yeah, I think it would be extremely dangerous. I will say this though, almost all of the Bigfoot reports are nonviolent. So I would wager to say that it's I wouldn't put it at the top of the list of frightening cryptids. I think I'd leave that with the Dogman/werewolf reports. Them seem to be much more scary, violent. The Bigfoot stuff is a lot of people get startled by it. A lot of people see it and they don't have any fear. So.
There have been reports that it will throw rocks at you to try to get you to leave its territory, or it'll start screaming and hollering, from a distance, try to scare you off. And so I think that's the only really violent things we've heard.
And that brings up an interesting point. We just assume, again, or I should say, let's not assume that because Bigfoot might be interdimensional somehow, that it means it's the super genius. It may be just some simple creature who has, it's like the legend in Africa. I can't remember the name. In African tribes, they have a legend of a little primate that is able, supposedly, kind of does like the Daredevil on X-Men, where it disappears and it reappears somewhere else.
Yeah.
Okay, they have a legend of a little primate that does this. I know Destination Truth did an episode trying to document it, where they would say that this little primate would go, they like rotten milk and I forget what else. Sometimes they would report it, like this creature would be in the huts in the middle of the night. Someone would wake up and see it, and then it would be like on the kitchen table or something, and then it would disappear and reappear somewhere else. And I thought, man, if this little primate could do that, supposedly, why couldn't Bigfoot? But yet still be just like a simple creature. I mean, the one thing, whether it's interdimensional or not, it seems to go after the bait piles.
Yeah.
And like you said, sometimes it seems to like, where if you're in its territory, probably close to it, what it calls its lair, will probably try to do things to get you to go away because it doesn't want you there. Again, what's the mystery behind it? What's the Bigfoot's agenda? That's that whole thing. Questions.
Yeah, that's amazing. A lot of theories, and that's what I was going to bring up as well. Maybe it can just appear and reappear in different places, maybe different times as well. If you think about it, because it's been documented, for hundreds of years.
Well, there's another theory, and I don't think it's responsible for all of them. It might be responsible for a very, very small percentage, and that may be, again, it's the same thing that goes back to a theory that is shared with Loch Ness Monster, and that's, are we looking at like the ghost of an animal that once existed?
Yeah. Oh, that's interesting. Yes.
Gigantopithecus, we know it existed. We have the fossils to prove it. Surprisingly, it's amazing that they let us see that. Even that. But they did, so we know it exists. So, yeah, if ghosts are real, spirits are real, there should be no reason why, residually, at a minimum, once in a while, one of these figures will pop up. What if, I don't know if I can say that because it crossed the highway, specifically the highway. Like, it wasn't like walking in a different area or anything, but, I'd say with some of them, maybe people are seeing ghosts. Of animals that once existed. Plesiosaurs, as far as the Loch Ness Monster or Champ or anything goes, Gigantopithecus as far as Bigfoot goes. Yeah. Or any species we haven't documented yet that's very similar.
Kevin, I'm going to ask you, right? Fact or fake? The Patterson Gimlin footage. What's your opinion on that?
If you would have asked me that 5 years ago, I probably would have said real. As the years go by, I'm starting to question it. But I got two problems with the Gimlin film. One is that they were making a Bigfoot documentary movie when they were filming this, and that's not talked about much. The other problem I have with it is that it's even though it looks amazing and you see muscle structure, you even see boobs. Things that people would assume, well, nobody would put that stuff into it if it were, if you were hoaxing something, you wouldn't think of putting boobs on it or that kind of thing, unless you're making a Bigfoot movie and you're trying different monkey suits and stuff. They say, well, the technology wasn't there to have suits like that. And if they were making suits that good, how come they weren't working for the movies? I don't know. But the biggest problem I have with it is that we haven't got anything else since then that is even closely comparable to. In other words, how come only that piece of footage? Like, we have other ones that are blob squatch ones where like they're from a distance or it's real grainy but nothing definitive like the Patterson footage. So I guess for most of my paranormal career, I felt it was real, because you do see some what might be called muscle structure. And the other reason for that is that question I've also had the pleasure of asking many cryptozoologists, and most of them feel it's real. But again, it's like, man, if we should have more by now with the drones, with the trap cameras, with the amount of people now that belong to Bigfoot groups that go out looking for it, why aren't we getting anything else that's that amazing? So for me, it's like, did they make this up? It's possible. Now, to their credit, it is way in the middle of nowhere, and people have even gone back to the same identical location to verify that it was. So I mean, like, if you figure if you're gonna make a Bigfoot movie, would you go that deep? Would you need to go that deep? There's pros and cons to it. I'm not as convinced as I used to be that it was real. The more years go by, and the more we have the ability now with things, it's like, man, ultraviolet cameras just came out a couple of years ago. That was exciting. We could see in a new spectrum, a little fraction of the new spectrum. And then bam, a couple of years later, Kinect's camera comes out. What have we got coming out in the near future? I look forward to it. I'm waiting for the day where we can put on a pair of glasses and see the spirit world. Hopefully we won't be insane like the Bible says. I think the Bible says somewhere that if you could see the spirit world, we'd go insane.
I think when, going back to the technology of the time, people were saying, well, you couldn't have faked that, and that didn't exist. But you got to remember, at that time, they were making Planet of the Apes. Right. And they had the makeup and the costumes. They had everything like that, and that was realistic. So that was available at that time. So those were, I'm guessing, people in costumes as well. So the technology, the makeup and all that, and the costumes, and they did exist at that time. So that's really much a fallacy when people come out and say, well, that didn't exist. Because it did, and probably some years before that as well.
And here's a good example of why. Another reason I think it could be fake. If you look at it's the Dogman footage that came out. Monster Quest did a show on it. A guy had faked some Dogman footage in Michigan, and he sent it to a radio station who watched it and thought it was real and put it out there, and it became a big thing. Then the guy came out and said, no, I hoaxed it. It was a joke. It showed it was supposed to be like footage from the 70s. Some guy chopping wood, and he's working on his truck, and next thing you know, they're filming in the field, and there's this like almost like this baboon looking thing that kind of like is looking at him, and then it comes flying right at him. It comes right up to the camera. You get a glimpse of some teeth, and then bam, that's the end of the footage. And I remember when I first saw that, I thought, man, that looks so real. First time I saw it, it fooled. Okay, I thought, damn. That could be real. Comes out and says, no, it's not real, and this is how I made it, and this is what I did. He said the lighting just happened to be perfect. The camera just happened to be perfect. He's like, it came out way better than I ever could have hoped for. And I think if that can happen, then it could be the same thing with the Gimlin, where maybe they were making the suit and they said, hey, let's put boobs on it. Nobody will ever think of that. Okay. And let's go out and film this once, and hey, wow, because of the way the is, and it looks like sheen. It actually looks like muscle structure. We got lucky on that one. Stan, how do we know that's just not the case? So tough call.
Well, Gimlin was recently interviewed as well, and he admitted that they went out there looking to film a Bigfoot. They had all the equipment to do that.
Well, the question is, were they making their own Bigfoot movie, or were they trying to film a Bigfoot scientifically? That's the question. Like, maybe they were trying to make a Bigfoot film, and they realized that they had actually shot a piece of film that was so amazing they could fool everybody, and hey, let's just turn this into Bigfoot footage and not even tell people about the little movie we were going to make. Because if we put this out as a real thing, we'll get way more exposure. It's a possibility.
Well, anything's possible. He even mentioned that they went up, they found where this thing had been watching them for a few days, and he wanted to go out looking for it, but the other guy said, no, let's wait a little bit, and then we'll go after it later. later or something. So, Gimlin could have just been a pawn, and everything else, they just could have probably used him to film it. And so that's what it sounds like when he's interviewed.
Yeah, we haven't interviewed him, and because we're a drama-free show, I don't think I'd go on and throw a bunch of curveballs at him. That's just not our.
No, not curveballs. It was just him talking. He was being interviewed, and it was just him.
Oh no, I'm saying like if we had him on, would I ask him the hard questions? Like, hey, well, how come no one else has gotten anything that's as amazing? And hey, weren't you guys really filming a Bigfoot movie? Just things that I've heard. And even if he wasn't, the movie aside, the fact. The one reason that we haven't got anything else that's comparable in so long, especially with all the technology we have out there now, it almost defies the odds. And maybe it's a numbers thing. Maybe that's why I feel comfortable saying that. Math doesn't lie.
It's a very small population, but that they would eventually inbreed themselves out of existence if it was that small.
Yeah, and we have different types too. I find that interesting. You go into the Himalayas, you got the Yeti. You go in the southern U.S., you have the skunk ape. Up by us, most of the reports are in the Midwest are brown color. If you go out towards the West Coast, the Rocky Mountains, they're more black. They're darker. You go up towards Alaska, and they're getting bigger again. It goes from 8 feet all the way to 9 feet. To some people say 10 feet. Same thing with the dog band reports. It seems like the further north you go, the bigger they get. I don't know why that is, but again, as we see it with bears. Further north you go, the bigger they get.
It's like the grizzlies.
Yep.
And polar bears.
So that I believe too. I mean, that kind of makes sense.
Well, there's even been report of white Bigfoots over in Alabama. We had a guest on that mentioned that he actually saw one.
And what's interesting about that? I wonder if that isn't just old age Bigfoots.
Maybe.
Why not, right?
Sure, absolutely. And how long did they live? There's no telling. They could live, 60 years or 100 years, 120 years. Some whales live over 200 years. We don't know.
We don't know. And another amazing thing about Bigfoot, I've always been amazed by. If you look at specific things, one thing that has made me wonder. I believe in Bigfoot because I've seen him with my eyes, so I know he's real. Some of the questions I have would leave me skeptical otherwise. Like, for instance, how come nobody stumbled upon a sleeping Bigfoot yet? Nobody, ever. Not one report of someone sneaking up and, oh yeah, I was walking along and there's a Bigfoot sleeping by a tree. You never hear that. We never find them sleeping, ever. Now, of course, they say that they go way deep in the middle of nowhere and they have sentinels and this and that, and maybe they do. So we're still not finding them. And some of these reports aren't deep in the middle of nowhere. Where we were 15 minutes away from a Walmart where I saw them. So again, it's like that to me, like if there's, I do think they're a breeding unit because we see big ones, we see little ones, we've seen mothers holding Bigfoot, little Bigfoots, see family units. We don't see that with Mothman or Jersey Devil, which is why I think them are possibly more demonic also. Again, that falls into paracryptozoology too. Any animal or suspected cryptid that may have superhuman abilities or supernatural abilities of some type, that kind of falls into that too. But
what would be your advice, Kevin, to anybody who did come across a Bigfoot? How would you tell them to react and behave?
I am no kill opposed to pro kill, so my advice would be don't murder something needlessly. Man, if you can get a picture, absolutely. Of course, some people believe that, we won't some people believe, we have to kill it because science won't acknowledge it until we kill it. Guess what? We probably have killed them before. And guess what? They're covered up. That's the problem. These things get covered up. X-Files, that's fake, but there are FBI agents out there that work unexplained cases. That's real. The Smithsonian alone has covered up so much stuff on giants. That alone. And again, when you talk about giants, some of them Bigfoots are pretty big. I'm not saying that Bigfoots are giants, but when I'm just saying, like, if the Smithsonian and the government's going to cover up giants, I'm sure that the government's probably, like Gavin suggested before, do they have a body? Do they know about it? Yes, they do, and they cover it up. Who knows? Maybe someone. The thing is, nobody's going around killing them all the time. I mean, to see one alone is like once in a lifetime. So to actually get a chance to kill one would be even probably way more, the odds are way more greater, or less, I should say, that you're going to do it. So, for the few times it probably has happened, it's probably been covered up really well. Just never heard about it.
And the people that say that they've actually had the opportunity to do that say they don't because it looks too human.
Yeah, and good for them. I'm glad we have people like that in the world.
Yeah, they say, no, that was a human. I'd probably go to jail.
Well, these are our brothers and sisters. If they're sentient beings, if they're thinking beings like us, and they're made in God's image like us, had 2 arms, 2 legs, they're our brothers.
Well, it could be, the theory, another species of human, another type of human, maybe, like a Neanderthal type. Maybe some of them could have live into modern times back at, deep into the forest somewhere, deep in the mountains.
Sure.
And that's what we're seeing. They're clever enough to stay hidden.
I believe in Genesis somewhere it talks about men was all covered head to toe in hair, and he left the clan or whatever and went off in the woods to live. Okay, that reference is in the Bible. I find that interesting. I mean, just that reference alone. But
so
yeah,
you think they're referring to the same creature? Maybe it was a different.
I think so.
A different species, different something.
We got dwarves, we got hobbits, we got Gigantopithecus. We can prove all this. We have giants. I mean, not every giant skeleton was covered up. So different sizes, shapes, variations of humanoids. Let's just call them humanoids. Whether they're interdimensional, extraterrestrial, underwater. Yeah, I think it's totally plausible. I also fan of the Hollow Earth. Not fan. I believe there's something to the Hollow Earth theory. And who knows what lives down there?
Mm-hmm.
Some prominent cryptozoologists and paracryptozoologists I know believe that some of these Bigfoots are coming from cave structures that live underground, and that's why we don't run into them too often. And once in a while they'll venture out of ground. Again, it's a theory that is as good as any other theory until we can prove otherwise. You can speculate on it. So yeah, I would say why not? There could very easily be like a Neanderthal that just happens to have a lot of hair. Yeah, here's the thing I always thought. Okay, we have Star Wars with Chewbacca.
Yeah.
And that's George Lucas, right? Who is a Freemason. I think he's Illuminati even. And he would have information to secret society stuff. So who knows, like what kind of, it's possible that even the Vedic stuff talks about hairy men. You probably, I know you can find old Oriental artwork that depicts men all covered in hair. Completely,
Yes, I've seen that, yes.
It's just
even the Vikings, the Old Norse have stories about people up in the north, in the far north, that had hair or covered with hair. They did battle with these creatures.
Maybe these creatures are some kind of angels of the earth, for all we know. Or maybe they're a species, like, there's so many possibilities. But I can't help but to think that there's something paranormal or supernatural going on with them. There's some element to it that's, whatever the element it is, it's the element that's keeping the mystery for us going. I mean, why, again, like, we should be able to document certain creatures like we do every other creature. And I understand we're finding new ones all the time. But with the Bigfoot, I mean, there's over 100,000 reports in the U.S. alone. That's a lot of reports. And that's the ones that people have come forward with. I figured for every report, there is at least one report that's not coming forward. Easy. Maybe 2 or 3 for everyone that does come forward.
Quite a bit. Yeah, I'd imagine.
So, I mean, you take that. I mean, that's just, again, like when I saw the map of Britain and all the Bigfoot sightings that were calculated, I was like, holy shit. That filled, I mean, damn near the whole island is filled up. If they're seeing that many, how come they can't document the species of it?
Right.
That alone tells me there's, I don't know if portals or they're invisible or interdimensional or what the deal is, but there's something going on.
Exactly. And a lot of people, they're not going to report what they've seen. They're afraid to, they don't want to be ridiculed or anything like that, because that's what society does.
Especially if it's got supernatural elements to
yes,
it.
Exactly.
Say I saw a Bigfoot. It's another thing to say I saw a Bigfoot and he walked in a portal. That kind of stuff. So, or...
So we're pretty much conditioned not to report these things. Society has conditioned us to do that. And, I think that's on purpose.
That is on purpose. That's part of our conditioning. They don't want us asking questions. They want us work and, fill the system, basically.
Yeah.
And ask as few questions as possible and give as much information as possible. But that's because of the mortal powers that be. Things happen for a reason, and a lot of things happen for a lot of reasons we don't know about.
That's a completely that's good for another show as well. We could go on for hours about that. So tell us what else what other things do you all have coming up with your paranormal society?
Oh, geez.
Anything you'd like to let us in on? Any future plans?
Any plugs? Anything you're promoting? Anything you'd like our listeners and viewers to support you with?
Okay. Why don't we start with the plugs first? The like page. If you want to get a hold of us, the best place to do it is go to our like page at Northern Wisconsin Paranormal Society. If you go to that, it's got our link to our website. If you go through the like page, you'll eventually see links to other like pages we have. Jennifer Celsi, psychic medium and demonologist. She's got a page. We have the Stovewood Tours. This were tours at a historic location that we do once a month. Paraversal Universe on the Paranormal King Radio Network is our radio show, and that's Friday nights at 7 p.m. Central. And Lake Monstrosities, CSI Paranormal, them are Facebook groups that we're involved with, and a couple like pages. One is Paracryptozoology, and another is Parasociology, 2 fields that I'm personally involved myself with.
You are such a busy man, Kevin. Can I say I personally look forward very much to your posts on Lake Monstrosities. Every post you post is fascinating. Honestly, I really look forward to it, along with the other stuff. Now, I would love to have you back, Kevin. I think we could cover a number of topics in depth, and the invitation is open, so whenever you'd like to come back and discuss a topic with us, get in touch with myself or Dave. We would love to have you on. You are a credit to the Paranormal Society with the work you do, and Jennifer does as well. You work tirelessly, and you're opening eyes and feeding brains at the same time, and we can't thank you enough. Thank you so much for guesting with us tonight.
And that was another amazing interview with Kevin Malik of the Northern Wisconsin Paranormal Research Society. That was a lot of information we had, Gavin. A lot of chilling stories, a lot of information. Really interesting stuff.
And if our listeners and our viewers are really enjoying this, subscribe, because we have a lot more of this coming up. And we will have Kevin back on, because Kevin has so much to say. Even just visit his Lake Monstrosities page. Every day his posts are incredible. You know, if you're into your sea creatures and your unusual creatures from the deep, absolutely phenomenal. It was just incredible detail.
It was amazing. Everything he talked about, things that he investigates, different topics. It was fantastic. And again, if the listeners really like that sort of thing, they could tune into my show, the Event Horizon show, which is going to be debuting this month on the Paranormal Chronicles Radio Network, your excellence in paranormal broadcasting. So it's going to be a lot of interesting topics. We're going to be talking, of course, about Bigfoot. In the future, we'll be talking about ghosts, about hauntings, about alternate history, forbidden archaeology. We're gonna have a lot of great topics for our listeners in the future, and really hope you all join us for that.
I'm so excited for your show alone, Dave, because that's how we met, was through your show, and it was a huge success, and I am blessed that you joined us on the Paranormal Chronicles Network. And I do know you're a little sketchy about this, I understand, a little twitchy, but in the month of June, we are going to do my speciality, the Ghost Sex Special.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting, I'm sure. It's going to have hopefully we'll have a lot of listeners, a lot of good information for people as well.
And anything we're talking about on tonight's show, if you want to comment, you have a view, opinion, maybe you're really skeptical, maybe you don't like what we're saying, get in touch. That's the only way we can find out what's on your mind. And if you have a story to tell, we will be doing live broadcasts later in the year. So if you want to be part of that, maybe you've got a story to tell, but maybe you're another podcast host and you want to get in touch with us, please do. This is a community show. This is for people in the paranormal, for the paranormal, who want to learn about the paranormal. But we're taking a slight departure now. Now, I really enjoyed doing this. For you Bigfoot fans, we were absolutely blessed to be able to speak to Ash Shannon from They Made Me Do It movie blog, and we went through the best and the worst of Bigfoot movies. I have to say, it was really funny. It was so much fun. So if we've chilled you, thrilled you a little bit tonight, maybe you need something to unwind with after all that chilling, mind-blowing information about Bigfoot, have a listen to this. I promise you it will put a smile on your face, and myself and Ash Shannon will be presenting future shows where we look at the best and worst movies that have a paranormal theme. So maybe it'll be zombies, werewolves, who knows, but we'll certainly be covering that. I hope you enjoyed this, Dave. I was a bit worried that this bit would offend you a little bit.
No, not at all. Really interesting, really funny. Thoroughly enjoyed it.
You will find out many different names for the male member from just listening to this segment. So we're going to head over to my interview with Ash live at the paranormalchronicles.com office, and then we'll be back after that. Now, joining us at the paranormalchronicles.com offices here in Wales, I am blessed and privileged to be joined by Ashley Shannon from They Made Me Do It, the critically acclaimed movie blog. Ashley, are you there, sir?
Hello, Gavin.
Hello, Ashley. How are you? I understand you've got some great Bigfoot movies for us to go out and watch.
Can you hear me all the way down there in Wales?
Yeah, where are you, Ashley?
I'm in Bristol.
That's only up the road.
But as you know, I used to live precisely where you live, in Wales.
It is, that is true. That is very
To
true.
reveal to the audiences, we have known each other for, upwards of 10 years. So.
We used to drink a lot together.
You did. I just watched you.
Yeah, I've been sober for 3.5 years now, so I'm doing well. Now it's just...
And I was sober for 8 years while you weren't, so we passed like ships in the night.
Do you think there'll ever be a time where we both be sober at the same time?
Well, now.
Today. Okay.
Right now, this is our first. This is an exclusive.
Here we go,
I'm
guys.
both sober, which is good, yeah.
Imagine me trying to do this show drunk. That'd be awful, wouldn't it? You'd have to put them to bed early for that one.
Get your finger on the bleeper, as they say.
On the bleeper. Now, I've tasked you with a very special challenge for us tonight. And
Yeah.
you have gone out of your way to explore some of the more obscure Bigfoot movies out there. Give me a bit of info.
Yeah.
What have you been doing?
Just to say first, I'm really delighted to be on this podcast. I've been a big fan of podcasts ever since they started, 10 years ago. I consume hours and hours of them a week, so I've always wanted to do one or be on one, and here I am.
Excellent.
Yeah, and you obviously already know that I'm a big movie buff, and particularly horror and B movies. But what you might not know is that I'm also massively into cryptozoology. The study of Bigfoot and the like, and the cryptoids, all the creatures that we don't know whether they really exist or not. Which obviously you'll be discussing in the rest of this podcast. But ever since I was a child, I've been into cryptozoology. I had all the X-Files, Unexplained books, and Bigfoot books, and Bigfoot probably always been my favorite area of that, just because so many different types of hominids, as you might call them, or Bigfoot, Sasquatch, abominable snowman, so this is the perfect segment for me to come in and share my expert knowledge of movies and cryptozoology with you.
I'm so excited because They Made Me Do It is the first place I go to for your movie reviews. Honestly, I know you people say, well, you're biased. I'm not. I really enjoy the way you cover the films and the films you cover. I want to ask you one question. Why Bigfoot? Why is he your favorite creature?
Well, I don't know. I guess because we are him in many ways, and he is us. It's not that far, is it, from what we are? He's relatable to us. And I like apes as well. I like gorillas. I love King Kong and Planet of the Apes and all that sort of stuff, and Bigfoot I think is in that category. Same as those monsters, quote unquote, those monsters like King Kong. They're not really monsters, are they? We're the monsters, and they're sympathetic monsters, and so is Bigfoot, or it should be in these films.
Well, King Kong, he just wanted to be loved.
He just wanted to go to the top of the Empire State Building
with his beard, with his woman.
A quick selfie, chuck a penny off the top, see if he can kill someone. That's what they do, isn't it?
And they gunned him down.
And they gunned him down because he was too big and hairy, and I resemble that remark.
I know, I was going to say, you're like son of Kong.
or Sasquatch, yeah, and I'll certainly be talking about that as well. But
so what films have you got? Where are you going to start? Where are you going to point our listeners and viewers to? Where are we going to start tonight?
Well, I'm going to give you 3 films. Good. It's a segment I call the good, the bad, and the Harry. Not the Harry. You heard me right. I said Harry.
I guess I know where that's going.
Do you know where I'm going with this?
So where are we going to start? The good, the bad, or the Harry? Where are we going to start?
We're going to start. I've got to say, I don't want to bring it down, but there aren't that many great Bigfoot films out there. A lot of them are not that good, but they've gotten better as the years have gone on, and they've gotten particularly better as they've started to do them in the found footage style. So what I'm going to cover first is a film called Exist. A great movie, yeah. It's all good. It's good, the bad, and the Harry. Remember, don't mess with it. It's a good movie. It is good. It came out in 2014. It's directed by Eduardo Sanchez, who many people will know as the co-director of the Blair Witch Project, and it's very much the same style of directing. It is found footage. It's Bigfoot done in the Blair Witch found footage style.
I have seen it, because don't they start by running Bigfoot's missus over, or his child?
Well, yes, they hit, like a lot of Bigfoot films do start like that, where they hit something and they're not sure what it was. But yeah, it does start with basically a bunch of idiotic young Americans go into it's a cabin in the woods film as well. They do go to a cabin in the woods and to get high and have sex, as they always do in these American films. I've never done that myself in this country, but perhaps the American listeners out there will go, yeah, we do that all the time, and something always happens like this. So
maybe we should go to America.
Maybe we should. Maybe there's a particular package holiday where you can go to a creepy cabin and you'll get attacked by zombies or Bigfoots and stuff.
Sign me up. It'd be a great experience. Me and you, high and in our underwear, wandering around in some woods.
Well, a lot of this film is filmed with GoPros, so it's always the appeal of these found footage films is how cheap you can actually make them, and very cheaply, because they're all filmed on GoPros. A bunch of kids cycling around the woods and trying to. One guy's always really high. Couples are always going off to try and have sex. It's a usual activity of teenagers in a horror film, but. Then it all starts to go wrong because they start to notice that they're not alone and they're being watched. Their cabin is being watched, and there is a Bigfoot, and they start to realize that it is Bigfoot, and he starts to sort of stalk them in their cabin. Starts to sort of knock at the door and throw stuff at them and make all the quite amusing noises. Ooh. that sort of thing.
I don't think it's quite that camp, if I remember. I think there's a little bit more bass.
When did you last watch it?
About 2 weeks ago, because I went through a load of Bigfoot movies for this segment.
Yeah.
And I enjoyed the movie. I liked the guy who tried to cycle off to save his friends, and Bigfoot just trashed him.
Yeah, he did the old falls off his bike and he has a bone coming out of his leg. It always happens, doesn't it? Yeah. So basically, Bigfoot ends up, picking them off one by one as they're being stupid and teenage and high, and they have no idea what to do because they didn't know Bigfoot was real, and nobody knows they're at this cabin. They didn't tell anyone because they're idiots. And they eventually are driven out of their cabin and they have to go into the woods and try and escape. And then there's a good third act twist, which perhaps we won't go into, but there is a twist as to why this Bigfoot is actually attacking them, and makes it a little bit more of a sympathetic character, which, as I say, I think Bigfoot should always be a bit sympathetic because he's not coming over here to get us. We're going over there and interfering with him. If he's there, that's what we're doing.
Because conveniently as well, there was no mobile phone signal at the cabin either.
Well, there never is in these parts of the world, is there?
But I guess you don't expect to be attacked by a Bigfoot.
I think perhaps they ran out of battery as well, but at least their GoPros kept going, so that's good.
Exactly. So we could view all the grisly deaths. Now, am I correct in saying, I don't want to spoil the film, but I'm sure that we saw a little bit of mercy from the Bigfoot at the end. Was that correct?
Yeah. I really like the ending actually. There's a particularly memorable scene I think involving a caravan.
Yes.
Which I've never seen anything quite like that, and that's quite good. And essentially there is a final survivor, and the Bigfoot does not attack him, does not kill him, and leaves him alone. And that's also quite a good note to end it on, I thought. So yeah, it is very much a Blair Witch Project with a Bigfoot. So the only thing I didn't really like about Exists so much was the creature effects, the actual look of the monster when you finally get a good look at it towards the end, particularly.
I thought it was brilliant. I like the fact that they gave him like a human face, and I think that helped to make him more of a sympathetic character once you realise why he is so cross with these people in the cabin.
On a rewatch, I thought, not too bad, but the first time I watched it, he looks very human. It's a human face with lots of
hair.
He looks like me after I got out of the shower.
It can't be worse than Andre the Giant in the $6 Million Man.
Oh, I've not seen that. What does that look like?
Basically, Andre the Giant with a brown face and like a big brown wig, just covered in fur.
In a onesie.
In a onesie, like a big hairy onesie. So
yeah.
So I've seen worse, and I think basically because I've seen quite a lot of these Bigfoot movies, I think I quite like this look at this Bigfoot.
Yeah, but with Exists, I think it's a good film, but I think it suffers from having a pretty poor title. I don't like that title. I'm not fussed on the creature effect, and if you look at the official poster, it's terrible. It's like a giant foot with a tree coming out of it in the middle of a road in the woods, and then the trees turn into the human face of the Bigfoot. Have a look at that poster. Tell me what you think.
Okay, what I might do is for our YouTube viewers is put the poster up anyway, so they can make their own minds.
Yeah, okay.
I'll see if I can get some permission to use some of the stills and whatnot.
I mean, I don't know that that's exactly what it is, but to me it looks like a disembodied foot with a tree growing out of it in the middle of the road. Now, I don't know what that's supposed to be. Why is that?
Yeah, I'm looking at it now. It looks, it's very...
What is it?
It's a car. It's a car, upside down car.
Oh, is it a car? Oh.
With a big tree pushed through the middle of it.
Oh, right. Okay, that makes more sense.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fine.
So that sounds like a great film. Now, what is your... I'm excited, after that segment alone, I'm excited to find out about your bad.
So my bad film, and there are a lot of bad Bigfoot films, particularly in the 70s and 80s. But the bad film I'm going to review it's actually an original video nasty too, and it's a film called Night of the Demon from 1980.
I love it.
Now, it's not to be confused with Night of the Demon from the 50s, the old black and white film, and it's not to be confused with Night of the Demons, which was the late 80s kind of slasher, kind of teenage film. Although those films are much better than this.
Okay.
It is actually, yes, it is a Bigfoot film from 1980. I don't know who directed this, who was in it. It's no one you'd ever heard of. It was... I think it was pretty shortly after Friday the 13th and these kind of teen films started to become popular. So it is a group of anthropology students that go into the wilderness, into the Pacific Northwest, I assume, in order to study, Bigfoot, I guess, and to search for Bigfoot for their college coursework, I guess. But when they get there, they do find a Bigfoot, and he does proceed to maim them in quite unique and amusing ways. Now, this film involves in no certain order. It involves lots of slow motion, druggy kind of impaling scenes. It involves a woman being raped by Bigfoot and giving birth to the illegitimate mutant Bigfoot child.
How does that work?
What do you mean?
Like, is that possible? Is it feasible? Because it's like, a horse and a woman couldn't give birth to, like, a horse child, could they? Was it the same with Bigfoot?
Well, she did give birth to it. I guess there is enough DNA, perhaps, for it to work.
Okay.
It's like that film, a film where the gorilla had sex with a woman and she had a baby. Do you remember that?
Sadly not, Ash. I think that's just one you
We'll
watched.
save that one for the gorilla podcast. I'm sure they'll...
Yes.
I mean, it's kind of glossed over weirdly. I think it starts with the rape sequence, straight into it. There's like this young girl. I don't even think she's of age actually. Young girl being like attacked by a evil dad on the porch, and then Bigfoot comes through in the night, rapes her, and then she gives birth, and the dad picks up the baby, holds it up right up to the camera, and it just looks like a blob of jam on a thin piece of toast. It looks it looks awful. I don't think it worked out. I don't think it pulled through. I'm sorry to say. So yeah, that happens. Bigfoot rape, Bigfoot love child. Bigfoot impales people, burns people's faces off.
How does he do that?
On a stove.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah. And the most unique kill in the whole film, and this is mostly what landed it on the Video Nasties list, is a sequence in which Bigfoot proceeds to rip off the penis of a biker.
What a penis?
A schlong.
What is chopper?
A tallywhacker.
What is flesh flute?
Is Johnson.
What is tumescent love pipe?
Yes, his pork sword, indeed.
What is beaver basher?
His truncheon, yes.
What is jerkin gherkin?
Shouldn't that be the other way around? Gherkin jerkin? No. Yes. His what was the tumescent love tube one?
It's tumescent love pipe.
It was that. Well, what
is disco stick? His one-eyed yogurt slinger. His sausage. His custard launcher. His mayo cannon. His yard of beef.
Is this a little book of names for penises that you keep by your bedside?
His love muscle. Of course, I have lots of names for him. I'm British. I think my favourite would probably be the tummy banana.
The tummy banana?
The tummy banana. That's what we used to call it in school. So Bigfoot kills a man by ripping off his penis, but how did he get into that situation to begin with?
Well, the biker has stopped his bike by the mountainside, by the roadside, in order to go and have a slash in the woods, a wee, out of his love tube. Bigfoot doesn't like that. This is his turf. He doesn't want you pissing everywhere. So
fair enough. It's scent, isn't it? It's like it's invading on his territory.
Exactly. Yeah, it's seen as quite an affront to a Bigfoot if you go weeing all over his lawn. So he grabs him right by the wang pipe and he pulls until it stretches almost comically. Well, not almost, very comically, and just pulls it off. And the biker just ends up running off with this fluorescent red blood pouring down his leathers. And that was the main thing that actually got it on the Video Nasties list. They did not like a penis rip, a wang tear. It was not seen as very good. So
did he survive?
I don't know. He ran off.
Because I checked out the trailer earlier, and I was in hysterics. I like the sleeping bag scene. Tell our listeners about the sleeping bag scene.
Yeah, so this is a scene I think that was done years later in a Friday the 13th film, but someone's just sleeping out under the stars, just minding their own business, and Bigfoot grabs them by one end of the sleeping bag and just swings it about, thrashing it into trees, and poor bloke can't do anything about it. He's just got to sit tight in his sleeping bag, and he's also
impaled on a tree.
Yes, impaled on a tree. And there's another bit towards the end. Basically, if people want to watch this film, I would say don't. But if you want to watch the best bits, if you put it on YouTube, there is a scene which covers the final scene where Bigfoot storms their cabin and just does away with them all, and that's the best scene. It's all in really freaky slow motion with this kind of Italian, 70s Italian flute in the background, or like a guy going mental on an organ. But, like prog rock organ in the background that's been slowed down, and Bigfoot's doing these slow motion roars. And this is where he impales people. He takes out people's intestines and swings them round. The BBFC banned it until 1994, and after that they agreed to pass it as long as they removed mayhem from the film. They call it mayhem. I like that.
Pretty much all I saw was a lot of mayhem to begin with. I think one of my favourite bits as well was there's a guy just by the window and Bigfoot just punches him through the glass. He just chins him, which reminded me, right, when I was a kid. I'm going back to about 1988.
That happened to you, did it?
It nearly happened to me, but I remember watching The Legend of Boggy Creek, which was a film made in 1972, and the BBC showed it one afternoon for some reason. And there was a guy, so it was the same fear as pretty much all of them. There's a family, they're in a cabin, they're being terrorised, they've done something to annoy Bigfoot, and there's a guy, I don't know why, it's like, why did this happen? But there's a guy, he sat on the crapper having a dump, and Bigfoot just punches him through the window. He just punches him, right? It's like the writer's like, let's make this guy more vulnerable. What would be more vulnerable? Oh, I know. Let's have him sat on the crapper and Bigfoot just punch him through the window. And it always stuck in my mind. And I was lucky because our bathroom was on a second floor. So I didn't have to worry about those sorts of things.
Unless it was a massive Bigfoot, then that's not going to cause any problems.
Well, some of them can be up to 9 feet tall.
Beware if you're going for a crap in your bungalow. Beware, because...
Yeah, if you've annoyed Bigfoot, if you've peed on his lawn, you've done something to annoy him. If you're in your sleeping bag minding your own business.
He won't get you right away, but he'll get you. Yeah. So this film was eventually able to be passed, and it's like a lot of video nasties. It's laughable, that this was ever banned so that people couldn't see this filth, And yeah, it's just it's a rubbish film. You probably won't be able to find it, but watch some clips on YouTube because the gory bits are really funny, and it's also just creepy. And if you can find the penis tearing scene, it's up there in, I'd say, the top 5 penis ripping scenes in movies.
We'll have to do a show on that, penis ripping scenes.
Oh, there are some good ones. Yeah,
I'm sure
we won't go into them now.
We won't go into it.
That's what you call a teaser.
I recommend to all our listeners, all our viewers, please go out and watch Night of the Demon. I think you'll have a good time. I think it's great. And if you are listening to the show on the podcast version, then check out our YouTube version because we'll have some images and stills, and who knows, if we can get permission in time, we will try and get the trailer for Night of the Demon to show on this version of the show. So that'll be really fun.
What I'm going to do as well is I'm going to publish a review of this movie in time for this podcast, so you can read a little bit more about it. I'll go into the penis ripping even more with even more depth. But yeah, I have a feature on my review blog which is called Movie Be Bad, and it's a feature when I pick rubbish films and review them. So I'm gonna publish a review of Night of the Demon from 1980 because it's so terrible, but also quite obscure and rare. And if you can't even find it to watch, you can always read my review of it, which will be up by the time you hear this.
That's great. So for everyone listening, go to Ashley's blog site. They made me do it. It is a critically acclaimed movie blog. It's absolutely superb. If you like your horrors, if you like your B movies, head over there. Now, I'm not really excited about your third choice. I don't really like it, but I'm going to see if you can change my mind. Oh. So what is the Harry part? I guess people have worked it out, but what is the Harry part?
We've been teasing it all show long, but yes, if Exist is a pretty serious take, and if Night of the Demon is a pretty absurd take, then Harry and the Hendersons is pretty much in the middle. So it's a film from 1987. It's a family film, definitely. It's suitable for all the family, but
no penis ripping off or anything in this one.
Hang on, no.
They deleted that scene.
That was deleted. So this film really, it's. I think a lot of people will look back on it like you perhaps do and think it was pretty daft and a bit naff, like your E.T. or your Short Circuit kind of stuff from the 80s, and it is like that. It's about the outsider being accepted in, and the message of treat everyone the same, and just because you're different, just because you're an alien or a Bigfoot doesn't mean you're evil. You could be a good person as well. So that's the kind of message behind the film, and it is pretty sugary in parts, definitely. But I also think it's a really well-made film, and I think actually out of all the Bigfoot films, it's the most well-made, I would say. And I think that's probably for 3 reasons. I think it's very well written, and I watched it yesterday, and I'm a 30-year-old man, and I laughed constantly throughout it. It made me laugh. Genuinely, I wasn't laughing at it. I was laughing with it. It's well written, and there are some good gags in there, particularly visual gags where Harry is doing something ridiculous and he doesn't understand and he's being stupid, and it's just genuinely funny without needing to go into like ridiculous territory so much. The other reason I think it's really good is because John Lithgow is in it. People might know him best for being on Third Rock from the Sun. Dick, I think his name was. Is that right?
I believe so. I enjoyed Third Rock from the Sun. John Lithgow's a fantastic.
He is a fantastic actor,
yes.
and I think people will know him best from like Harry and the Hendersons and Third Rock from the Sun. But he also plays some great villains as well in other films that you should definitely check out. But in this one, he is the same as he is in Third Rock from the Sun, without being an alien. Of course, he's a nice guy, dad, and he's just a family man.
Is he in the spin-off of it as well?
No. Well, there was a TV series, yes, that ran for quite a few seasons, and neither him or the actress that played his wife are in that. Although it does feature the same person as Harry, so thank God for that.
Because my second wrestling connection of the evening is that Harry in what was the TV series called? Harry and the Henderson or Bigfoot?
They were both called both of those things, yeah. But Harry and the Hendersons in America certainly.
Because he became a wrestler. Harry became a wrestler, and he fought Hacksaw Jim Duggan.
You mean within the show?
Within the show, not in real life.
Oh, all right. And Jim Duggan was on an episode of the TV show, was he?
Yes, that's his true.
Oh,
yes.
I didn't really care to go into the TV show for this, but maybe I will now. If there's a Bigfoot wrestling match, then that's worth the price of admission, definitely.
But like, is there like the common pratfalls where he's like trying to use the toilet or trying to get in a car? Is it that kind of humour?
Yeah, it is, and that's you might think that's pretty. Yeah, it is pretty predictable and cliched. But I think the main reason why this film succeeds and is saved from being just stupid is the effects and the makeup and the look of Harry. This is a film made in 1987. I watched it yesterday, and I think it's fantastic. In 2016, I think it's fantastic. And that's because the makeup was done by the great Rick Baker, who I'm sure a lot of people will know if they know anything about. Yeah, well, Rick Baker, I looked this up for the show. He's won 7 Oscars for makeup and effects. 7. Did
he win an Oscar for his portrayal of Bigfoot in Harry and the Hendersons?
No, he didn't play Harry. He's the makeup guy.
Yeah, but did he win an Oscar for creating a creature effect?
Oh yeah, he won the Oscar in this too. Yeah.
Good grief.
Yeah, he won the Oscar for this film. The Best Makeup Academy Award was created essentially for him and for his work in American Werewolf in London.
Fantastic movie. We will have to do a special on werewolves.
I'm sure we will, and I'm sure that will be on it. But everyone remembers that transformation scene. It's just incredible, and that's the first one he won. But he won many more for this and for lots of others. But that's why this film really succeeds, because you'd not once do you think, oh, that's a fake character, that's a fake Bigfoot. The whole time he's a real person, a real character. And I think a lot of the face is animatronics and puppetry, and there's obviously a massive guy in a suit anyway. But it's just the facial expressions that they're able to portray through Rick Baker's makeup effects are fantastic. And he can be scary, he can be sad, he can be confused if he does something he doesn't understand. And it's a great bit where John Lithgow's character teaches him to sit, and he says, "Go on, sit," and then he basically like just launches himself onto the settee and it breaks, and then he gets up and he launches himself onto a table, and so he's destroying the living room with his ass basically. And that's really funny. Yeah, so there's lots of just like easy gags. They're not clever, and they're not trying to be overly clever and funny. They're just like simple slapstick gags involving this fantastic looking creature, and underneath it all, it's the same ET message of don't judge people by how they look, that sort of thing. But it's also like it's quite an allegory on how we treat animals as well. A lot of it, because when they first encounter Harry, they're out hunting. John Lithgow's character is trying to teach his son how to hunt, which depending on where you are in the world, that might be fine and it might not be fine. When they decide to bring him back, John Lithgow thinks, I'm gonna have to shoot this thing because it's in my house and it's wrecking the place. So he gets his gun out, as he usually would, and he says to his son, I've got to shoot it, it's an animal. And then his son says, no, it's not an animal. And
he's my friend. Does he say it's my friend?
An animal, it's Harry, and then that is actually John Lithgow's character that gives him the name Harry. Then and they realise that it's not an animal, it's a real person. And there's even a bit where Harry discovers the mother's kind of mink stole in the cupboard.
He doesn't like mount it or anything.
No. Well, there's two sections involving taxidermy, if you like. There's a section where he discovers the mink stole and he goes out to the garden to bury it because he thinks it's a dead animal. You should.
Oh, poor Harry.
He thinks, I'm going to bury it, and then the rest of the family look at the mother like judgingly, and she's like, "What? It was my grandmother." grandmother's, and she gave it to me. I didn't buy it. Oh, it was going to die anyway. And all the things that people say when they her, and obviously that's being turned on its ear because another animal is treating it as it should be treated, as another animal. But there's also a bit where there is a stag head mounted in the lounge that they're in, and Harry looks at the stag head, and then he looks around the corner to the other side of the wall, and he can't see the rest of the deer coming out the other side. He's confused. So he goes back, looks at it, and he's like, "What is this?" And he ends up just punching the wall. So that's
It's nice for Bigfoot to be represented in a positive way because
that's it. This is the only film where he's not a monster and he is just an animal and should be treated as an animal.
Because from my research for this, Bigfoot is a very spiritual creature. It's very much in harmony with its surroundings. They're secretive, quiet creatures. And there's loads of folklore and mythology surrounding them. And to have a nice Bigfoot, for whatever reason, since the Patterson-Gimlin footage in 1967 and the Bigfoot mania, Bigfoot is represented as angry, evil, like in, I think it was Bigfoot in 1970. Again, he chucks a motorbike at a hippie. He keeps human prisoners for the purpose of breeding.
I don't begrudge him that.
No, that's what he wanted to do. But there seems to be this common theme that Bigfoot is an animal and he's sexually.
Go on.
Yeah, sexually. I don't know what to say. He's dark, isn't he? He's rapey.
He's sexual. Yeah.
He's a sexual being.
He wants to rub himself all over trees in your living room. Yeah. They actually don't feature that in Harry and the Hendersons.
Good, because you wouldn't want to watch Bigfoot or Night of the Demons and then watch Harry and the Hendersons and you're like, whoa, what's he gonna do to the wife? You don't want to have that you don't want that at the back of your mind. You want to be like, he's a spiritual creature, he's a loving creature, but not in that way.
Well, you don't want him to harry your Henderson in that way, do you?
No. Those were 3 fantastic choices.
Yeah.
Is there any that kind of made you're kind of like on the outskirts of your list that you didn't cover tonight?
Yeah, so when I was deciding what I would do for the good one, I really had Exists in mind from when I watched it a couple of years ago, but I'd also heard about this film Willow Creek as well, which came out around the same time, and I know you've seen it as well. And so I watched that, and it didn't quite make the cut, but I still thought it was great. Do you know who directed this off the top of your head?
What, Willow Creek?
Yeah.
No.
Without looking it up, it was directed by Bobcat Goldthwait.
Yes, I did know that.
So
it's a very weird ending where there's a topless lady wandering around in a dark.
Well, if your listeners might not know who Bobcat Goldthwait is, it basically
from Police Academy.
From Police Academy, yeah.
And Scrooge.
Zed, I think was his name, from Police Academy. So in that, he's best known as playing a misunderstood character. So the fact that he would one day direct Willow Creek about Bigfoot is very very fortunate indeed.
And again, like at the end of that film, there's a woman wandering around topless. Is this again alluding to the sexuality of Bigfoot?
In Willow Creek?
Yes, at the end, there was a woman. There's a woman had gone missing, and you briefly see her at the end, and she's just wandering about in her underwear.
Is that a post-credit sequence? Or?
Possibly.
I don't remember.
Maybe I made it up. Maybe I dreamt.
I think you just see topless women in films anyway.
I did write Ghost Sex: The Violation. So who knows? On my list, which I very much enjoyed, was the Lost Coast Tapes, which is about a film crew going out looking for them.
Yeah, and as well. It's good.
They're looking for Bigfoot, but it might be alien space demons.
Well, yeah,
Bigfoot kind of helps them a little bit.
The only thing I didn't like about Lost Coast Tapes and also Willow Creek is kind of a lack of payoff at both of them, I would say. I never really understood what the ending of the Lost Coast Tapes was, and perhaps that's what they wanted. But was it Bigfoot? Was it an alien? Was it a bit of both? I'm not quite sure.
Because Bigfoot, they said that Bigfoot tried to drag that lady away to protect her, and then these big hooved, weird bipeds.
Yeah, the hoof. I saw the hoof at the end, and I was like, well, what's that then? Yeah, I was confused. Yeah.
Well, any of our listeners, any of our viewers, please message us at the Paranormal Chronicles which is the Paranormal Chronicles at aim.com. Or on Facebook, The Paranormal Chronicles. Let us know what your favourite Bigfoot movies are, what your favourite scenes are, what you'd like to see in a Bigfoot movie. But Ash, how can we get in touch with you? Because obviously we want to keep in touch with you, find out all the stellar work you're doing with your movie reviews. How can we keep in touch with you, my friend?
So yeah, you can find They Made Me Do It movie blog online. The best way to find it is just to type that into Facebook, find the group there. The picture is like a spiral. You should be able to find it. And I'll publish some articles, links to articles on there. But also, if you follow me on Twitter at @AshMadeMeDoIt. Also, I post links to my reviews on there, and also just like to chat with people on there about about horror movies and B movies and exploitation, and yeah, hopefully now more paranormal and cryptozoological stuff as well, hopefully.
And to anybody out there who has listened to this and really enjoyed this conversation, please subscribe, because me and Ash are planning to do monthly or quarterly features on different films, different genres, different types of films, which all got a bit of a link to the paranormal world. So subscribe, keep in touch. And Ash, have you got anything you'd like to end on, sir?
I'd like to say visit the Paranormal Chronicles, or visit They Made Me Do It for a dick-rippingly good time.
Yeah, definitely. I'm going to sit with my legs crossed for this. But Ash, it's been such a pleasure. Your time is much valued. That was superb. Thank you very much.
I look forward to the next time. Thanks very much, guys.
Thank you very much.
Cheers.
Thank you, everyone, for listening to that segment. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I enjoyed recording it. Now, if you want to keep up with Ash Shannon's shenanigans, then just follow him on They Made Me Do It movie blog, and keep listening, because later in the year, across the next couple of months, we will be doing a lot more of those segments, and we hope they entertain you. We're going to be looking at vampires, zombies, werewolves, and anything to do with films and the paranormal.
And we're going to have further stories, further guests about Bigfoot. In the coming months, we're going to be talking about all things paranormal, all things ghost and spooky, things that go bump in the night. And we'll be covering in the future, we're going to be covering forbidden archaeology, what if history, sci-fi, your favorite sci-fi shows. We'll be having guests do panel discussions, pretty much everything that has to do with paranormal, with the geeky, with whatever people are interested in.
I am so excited, Dave, because I was such a big fan of the Event Horizon show. I learned so much, and as I said earlier, I was privileged to guest on that, and the response I got was phenomenal. So it's really nice to bring the Paranormal Chronicles faithful together along with the fans of the Event Horizon show. Now, if you don't want to miss a show, if you want to keep in touch with us, then please subscribe. If you want to get in touch with me, you can get in touch with me at paranormalchronicles@aim.com. And if you want to get in touch with wonderful Dave, then email him at eventhorizonshow@gmail.com. Now, there's lots more shows coming up. We've already recorded some of them. There's going to be video footage from investigations. There's going to be loads of stuff. There's going to be special interviews, special videos, vignettes on ghost stories from my area, from Dave's area, and we're working really hard. And as time goes on, we're going to be expanding our network. There will be more guests, more hosts, lots more. So please press subscribe, give us a like, leave a comment. If you want us to do something a little different, let us know. If there's a segment you didn't think worked, let us know. If you like a guest, let us know, and we'll try and get them back on. This show is for you. As simple as that. This show is for you. Without you, there's no show. So whether there's 10 of you or 1 million of you, we have a passion and a dedication to do this to the best of our abilities, okay? And it's for you. Now, Dave, that's it for me. I'm exhausted. 3 hours of Bigfoot. What can I say?
A great 3 hours, Gavin, and it's been great being on the show, and it's been great. I think a great first show that we're having here. So we'd like to thank everybody for listening and tuning in, and please tune in again. You're not going to want to miss our future shows. And thanks again for listening. You all have a good day and be safe.
You have been listening to the Paranormal Chronicles Network. Do sleep well.